Chapter 543. Sky Extreme Sword Art, Fourth Sword, Firmament. Tianyang roared furiously as the true yuan within his body instantly boiled. From the fourth sword onwards, the Sky Extreme Sword Art ushered in a qualitative leap. Just like the 9 refined dragon body and the sky dragon body, it was a watershed. Tianyang had already learned the third sword, Star Burial, when he was at the transformation realm. However, he was only able to use the fourth sword now. There was only one reason. After the fourth sword, it was already Tianyang's peak sword Dao from his previous life. The Sky Extreme Sword Art that Tianyang had created now only had 7 swords. The first 3 swords were the basics, while the last 4 swords were the strongest swords. Tianyang dared to say that even if Sword Saint Zhou Xing was alive, he would not be able to surpass him in terms of the power of the fourth sword. Trying to mystify things. At this moment, seeing Tianyang swing his sword, the Sky Demon Cult Elder's heart suddenly had a bad premonition for some reason. He snorted coldly and controlled the Sky Demon Seal to crush Tianyang. Die for me, the Sky Demon Cult Elder roared furiously. At this moment, Tianyang smiled faintly. The stick's sword in his hand was filled with the radiance of the Sky Firmament Sword. A heaven-like might appeared on Tianyang's body. Fourth sword, Firmament. What was Firmament? Firmament for the heavens. Firmament for the heavens. This sword was the sword that pierced the firmament, laughing at the heavens. Boom! A heaven-like might appeared on Tianyang's body. An incomparably terrifying sword Dao aura suppressed the entire Great Void Mystery Realm. The crowd that had entered the Great Void Mystery Realm with Bai Ying and the rest were all dumbstruck. The restrictions of the Great Void Mystery Realm were extremely powerful. Some powerful spirit kings could not enter at all. The Sky Demon Cult Elder, who was at the 4th level of the Sea of Soul Realm, was already the strongest here. However, they could clearly feel that the life of their strongest individual was being threatened at this moment. In the next moment, the firmament sword crushed the heavens and the earth, ruthlessly slashing towards the Sky Demon Seal. Block it! The Sky Demon Cult Elder roared madly. 4th level Sea of Soul Realm Zhun Yuan burst out of his body and attacked the sword in the sky. Be that as it may, how could the firmament sword be so easily blocked by a Sky Demon Cult Elder as the 4th move of the Sky Demon Sword Manual that had unleashed its true power? Boom! 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 The terrifying sound of the collision was like rolling thunder, almost deafening everyone's ears. In the middle of the battle, the firmament sword and the heavenly demon seal were still clashing. Tianyang was merely at the 3rd level of the Sea of Soul Realm, and this was the result of using a secret art. However, in everyone's eyes, Tianyang was firmly suppressing the Sky Demon Cult Elder. As for the Sky Demon Cult Elder, although he had a cultivation base of 4th level Sea of Soul Realm, he was like a weakling in front of Tianyang and was easily killed. Bang! Finally, the firmament sword shattered the Sky Demon Seal. Seeing this, the Sky Demon Cult Elder's complexion instantly turned deathly pale. The Sky Demon Seal was already the strongest move he could use, but it was still broken by Tianyang. Even the Sky Demon Seal couldn't block Tianyang. Who else here could block Tianyang's attack? Damn it! Run! The Sky Demon Cult Elder was no fool. Since he couldn't fight, he naturally fled immediately. Where there's life, there's hope. Moreover, he could also see that Tianyang could possess such powerful battle strength entirely because of a powerful secret art. And secret arts all had a time limit. As long as the time limit was up, Tianyang would return to his original half-step Sea of Soul Realm cultivation base. At that time, wouldn't he be at their mercy? Thinking of Tianyang's secret art that allowed his battle strength to increase explosively by 4 levels, the Sky Demon Cult Elder felt a wave of passion. If he obtained this secret art, wouldn't it mean that he could completely possess the battle strength of a Spirit King? When that time came, he could even fight for the position of Head Elder or even the position of Venerated Elder. However, the Sky Demon Cult Elder glanced warily at Tianyang. Then, the power of his martial soul condensed. A pair of huge golden rock wings appeared behind the sky demon cult elder's back. Superior Earth Tier, martial soul, golden winged rock. Tianyang's expression changed slightly as he looked at the sky demon cult elder's golden rock wings, frowning slightly. That's not right. The real golden winged rock is a primordial beast and doesn't lose out to the four great sacred beasts: the azure dragon, the white tiger, the vermilion bird, and the black tortoise. How could it only be superior Earth Tier? The sky demon cult elder probably only awakened a pair of wings from the golden winged rock. Tianyang muttered to himself. If the sky demon cult elder was here, he would probably be so shocked that he couldn't speak. After all, what Tianyang said was completely accurate. Just as Tianyang had said, his martial soul was a pair of wings from the golden winged rock, a primordial beast. A pair of wings alone wasn't very useful in battle, but it was very useful now that he was running for his life. With a flap of his wings, the sky demon cult elder's figure disappeared countless miles away, just a hair's breadth away from the massive spatial door. However, Tianyang was unperturbed. He unhurriedly executed the void-treading secret technique and followed after him. At the same time, Bai Ying was also running. However, Bai Ying's face was filled with confusion as he watched Tianyang's movements. The sky demon cult elder's rock wings was extremely fast, and even a spiritual king might not be able to outrun him. Tianyang was accelerating so slowly. Wasn't he just letting the sky demon cult elder escape? How could the sky demon cult elder care so much at this point? Seeing that the spatial door was getting closer, he couldn't help but laugh out loud. Ha ha! Tianyang, you didn't expect this, did you? My golden-winged rock wings is just that powerful. Just you wait. How dare you humiliate me like this? I'll get my revenge one day. The sky demon cult elder cackled wildly and was about to charge headlong into the spatial door. However, the spatial door disappeared in an instant. The sky demon cult elder's figure only advanced 300 meters before stopping. What's going on? The sky demon cult elder's face was filled with disbelief. Logically speaking, shouldn't the spatial door remain open for a week before closing? Why would it close now? After all, there were still several thousand people in the Great Void Secret Realm who hadn't made it out. Everyone else looked as if they had seen a ghost. What was going on? Of those present, only Tianyang and Ling Yuhan knew the reason. The entire Great Void Secret Realm was under Tianyang's control, and the spatial door was no exception. Of course, Tianyang could open and close it whenever he wanted. If not for that, Tianyang would have already unleashed his Void Walk secret technique to hunt down the Sky Demon Cold Elder. Oh my, looks like your luck isn't all that great, Sky Demon Cold Elder. Tianyang walked up to the Sky Demon Cult Elder as if he was taking a stroll, chuckling softly. The Sky Demon Cult Elder's face twitched at his words. Tianyang, no, young Master Tan, Lord Tian, Lord Tian, Lord Tian, let's talk this out. My apologies, I have nothing to say. Tianyang chuckled softly before raising his hand and slashing down with his sword. A beautiful flower of blood spurted out from the Sky Demon Cult Elder's neck. Soul power swept out, crushing the Sky Demon Cult Elder's soul fragment into pieces by Tianyang's soul power. Then, the Sky Firmament Sword's devouring power was unleashed, devouring the superior Earth-tier martial soul until there was nothing left. The Sky Demon Cult Elder was a 4th level C of Soul Realm. He died here. Chapter 544. The Sky Demon Cult Elder was dead. Countless people shuddered uncontrollably as they watched the Sky Demon Cult Elder turn into a bloody mist in the air. That was an elder of a second-rate faction, the Sky Demon Cult. Possessing a powerful cultivation of 4th level C of Soul Realm meant that his fighting power and status were definitely not weak. And the result? But in front of Tianyang, a young man who was almost 17 years old, he was like a chicken or a dog. He was instantly killed. Ow! How could this be? Bai Ying's face was deathly pale without a hint of blood. The Sky Demon Cult Elder was actually dead? All of a sudden, there was not a hint of arrogance left on Bai Ying's body. He knew very well that being arrogant before Tianyang was no different from courting death. If even the Sky Demon Cult Elder could be killed so easily, he, second level Sea of Soul Realm, would be dead without a doubt. Not bad. The elders of a major faction like the Sky Demon Cult are not poor after all. They have millions of superior Great Spirit stones, and Reiki has several thousand as well. Tianyang chuckled as he reached out and took the Sky Demon Cult Elder's spatial pouch, effortlessly destroying the soul mark branded on it. Everyone shuddered once more at his words. There was not just one Sky Demon Cult member here. In the end, Tianyang still took the Sky Demon Cult Elder's spatial pouch so easily and was even commenting on it. However, when everyone looked towards the other Sky Demon Cult members, they were stunned to find that they had run several thousand li away and were extremely far away from Tianyang. Even a fourth-level Sea of Souls Realm Elder had died. If they went up, wouldn't they be looking for death? These cultivation resources could be used for a long time. Tianyang smiled faintly and put away the spatial pouch. His eyes narrowed as he looked at the panicking Sky Demon Cult members and chuckled. Do you really think that I can't kill you just because you're several thousand li away? The faces of the Sky Demon Cult members changed drastically at his words. That was when Tianyang stepped into the air, his figure instantly vanishing from where he was. Air Step Secret Art, 4th layer. The 3rd layer required cultivation of Tao Fire Realm, while the 4th layer required Sea of Soul Realm. If the speed of the 3rd layer was comparable to a Sea of Soul Realm, then the 4th layer would allow a 1st-level Sea of Soul Realm to reach the speed of Soul King. Bang! Space was directly pierced through by Tianyang's extreme speed. Tianyang's gaze narrowed, and the sword in his hand. Void Sword Embryo. He saw that one of the Sky Demon cultists had taken out a talisman. It was a talisman that could temporarily break through the seal of the Great Void Secret Realm, the boundary-breaking talisman. Tianyang, just you wait. You killed Elder Wu. The sect leader will not let you off. At this moment, the person who had already activated the talisman suddenly laughed arrogantly. However, at this moment, a beautiful cold light suddenly appeared in front of those people. Elder, Sky Demon, white, cult member, white, cult, elder, he's how. That person roared in his heart. A distance of several thousand li. As Sea of Soul Realm cultivators, they had spent a few minutes, but it had only been a few seconds. This terrifying cold light was right in front of them. However, although he was furious, he didn't dare to show it. His voice trembled as he said, Sir Tianyang, let's talk nicely. Unfortunately, before he could finish, the Great Void Sword Embryo pierced through his glabella and tore his soul apart. Beside him, several Sky Demon Cult deacons were torn apart by the Void Sword Embryo just as they were about to flee. The Heavenly Demon Cult was completely annihilated. However, there was not a single drop of blood left on the Great Void Sword Embryo. How could an existence that surpassed the level of a spiritual weapon be stained so easily? Although this Great Void Sword Embryo is just a sword embryo, it's not bad to use it as a flying sword. Tianyang chuckled, then turned around and looked at the white figure. He would never forget that after Ku Shan, Bain was the first one to deal with him. What? The white figure's face paled at once. Tianyang still remembered him. Without hesitation, he ignited his true yuan and drew out a talisman from his spatial pouch. Now that the Great Void Secret Realm was closed, Tianyang was the strongest. If he couldn't escape, Tianyang would catch up to him no matter where he hid. When that happened, the prodigy of Lunar Mountain would be killed by Tianyang. The Venerable One is outside. Tianyang is an N in front of the Venerable One. I'll succeed as long as I escape. The white figure roared inwardly, but Tianyang had already unleashed a secret technique to charge at him. Try to run? Tianyang snorted, and the Styx River sword in his hand shone brightly. At this moment, the white figure roared, bit his tongue, and spat out a mouthful of blood. The boundary-breaking talisman was nourished by the white figure's blood essence, and it emitted a demonic blood-red light. It tore open a crack in the space. Then, The white figure rushed in without hesitation. Oomph! Tianyang's expression did not change, and he slashed out with his sword. A sharp sword radiance tore through the space and hit the white figure's waist, causing blood to spurt out. Ah! The white figure screamed, but he did not stop the teleportation. He forcefully channeled his true yuan and rushed out. Seeing the white figure leave, Tianyang's expression changed slightly. Then he smiled. Go out? It would be easier to kill him if he went out. The mark of the Great Void's sacred palace exploded again, and Tianyang did not bother to hide anymore. He rushed in through the teleportation gate that had just appeared. He had to kill the white figure. Why did the teleportation gate suddenly open and close? I don't care, this is hell. Seeing the teleportation gate open, everyone was stunned, but they rushed in without hesitation. This was a place where at least 5 of Soul Realm cultivators were killed. They did not want to stay in it for even a second. As for the other contestants, they came to their senses and rushed in as well. Jun Aoyang had a helpless look on his face. He had originally thought that he could exchange a few blows with Tianyang and brag about it when he went out. He did not expect that Tianyang did not even use his full strength in the heart-refining tower. Boom! The loud sound of space shattering attracted everyone's attention. Why did the teleportation gate just disappear? A third-level C of Soul Realm Cultivator had just opened his mouth when he saw the white figure rushing out as if he had seen a ghost. At this moment, the white figure's waist was almost cut in half, and his face was extremely pale. It was obvious that he was severely injured. However, the third-level C of Soul Realm Cultivator did not understand. When the Great Void Secret Realm could threaten the heavenly Een Mountain's prodigy. At this moment, the teleportation gate opened, and Tianyang rushed out. He looked around and instantly locked his eyes on the white figure. The white figure's body trembled. Then he roared, "Venerable, save me!" Hearing this, Tianyang's expression changed slightly. At this moment, a cold snort was heard. "What's the matter? You want me to help? Wait a minute, who did this?" A middle-aged man stepped on the void and slowly walked out. He looked in the direction of the sound and immediately discovered the white figure's severe injuries. His face instantly darkened. At this moment, Tianyang saw the person who was thrown out by the middle-aged man. The killing intent in his eyes could not be suppressed, because that was Chapter 545, Supremacy. Tianyang was also very familiar with such an existence. In his previous life, when Tianyang fought with the Heavenly Een Mountain, he had met and killed many of them, but he did not expect Bai Ying to be able to invite a supremacy to protect him, and this supremacy had even attacked Tai Wuji. City Lord Tai. Tianyang snorted coldly and released the true yuan in his body. He used the Void Step secret technique and instantly arrived at where Tai Wuji was and pulled him up. Scanning with his soul power, Tianyang's expression became extremely ugly. In his senses, Tai Wuji's bones were almost all crushed. Only his dantian was not broken, but it would be extremely difficult for his bones to recover. Grade 5 pills, the Life and Death Spirit Molding Pill, were not easy to find. There seems to be some in the Great Void Divine Palace, but now is the time to go get it. Tianyang muttered to himself and tapped a few times on Tai Wuji's body to stop his life force from leaking out. He summoned the Heavenly Yuan Tower and stored him inside. Tai Wuji had helped him a lot before he entered the Great Void Secret Realm, and had even helped him avoid a lot of trouble. He thought that Tai Wuji did not appear before because of the restriction of the Great Void Secret Realm, but he did not expect that it was the supremacy of the Heavenly Een Mountain. The Heavenly Een Mountain was made up of disciples, protectors, ghost generals, supremacies, as well as the sect leader and vice-sect leader. Xiao Hao and Xiao Weiyuan were disciples, and the general manager of the Firmament Territories East was a ghost general. However, these people were nothing but trash to a venerable one. Humph. Tianyang, your only support has been destroyed by the supremacy. I want to see what you can use to fight me now. Bai Ying stood beside the supremacy and endured his injuries as he mocked. The supremacy was in existence at the 8th level of the Sea of Soul Realm. It was too easy for him to kill Tai Wuji, who was at the 7th level of the Sea of Soul Realm. If not for this, Bai Ying would not have dashed out so confidently, not afraid that Tianyang would catch up and kill him. All of this was because of this middle-aged supremacy of the heavenly Yin Mountain. My name is Venerable Ironbone. I'm in charge of young Master Bai Zhuan's safety along the way. At this moment, the middle-aged man slowly spoke. Killing intent flashed in his eyes. He was responsible for protecting Bai Yin, but in the end, Bai Yin was injured so badly by Tianyang right under his nose. Bai Yin was almost killed. He, Venerable Ironbone, had never experienced such humiliation in his entire life. However, when Tianyang looked at Venerable Ironbone in front of him, his expression darkened. Not only was he a venerable, but he was also given a title. This venerable strength was probably close to the peak of the 8th level of Sea of Soul Realm, and was about to step into the 9th level of Sea of Soul Realm. When he reached the 9th level of Sea of Soul Realm, his title of venerable would probably be replaced by something like Vice Sect Master. An opponent of this level was extremely troublesome to deal with. I don't like killing people, so you can either kill yourself now, or have your heart pierced by me and die. Choose one. Tianyang's face darkened when he heard that. He wanted him to kill himself as soon as he opened his mouth. This Venerable Ironbone's way of doing things was so overbearing. On the side, a group of Tianyang's enemies sneered when they saw this scene. This Tianyang is strong in every way, but unfortunately his eyesight is bad. He actually provoked the heavenly Yin Mountain and even caused their venerable to take action. This time, we don't need to do anything. The venerable of the heavenly Yin Mountain can easily kill Tianyang. All right, I heard that Tianyang also has the Star Sword sect behind him. That Star Sword sect is about to be destroyed. A third-rate force actually dares to produce such a genius. It's better to be destroyed. The spectators laughed. Hearing this, Tianyang's face became even more unsightly. The true essence in his body was constantly circulating. He had calculated everything, but he never expected that a venerable would appear this time. Oh right, venerable. Tianyang seemed to be able to close and open the teleportation door of the Great Void Secret Realm. I suspect that he has obtained the inheritance of the Great Void Emperor. Bai Ying suddenly said. Hearing this, the entire world seemed to quiet down. Tianyang cursed in his heart, and the killing intent in his heart began to soar. This move of Bai Ying was simply vicious. Regardless of whether he had obtained the inheritance of the Great Void Emperor or not, these people would definitely kill him. Oh, hearing this, Venerable Ironbone was stunned, and then a look of greed flashed in his eyes. The inheritance of the Great Void Emperor. Even the Heavenly Yin Mountain had heard of the name of the Great Void Secret Realm. Naturally, they also knew of the existence of the inheritance of the Great Void Emperor. Unfortunately, from ancient times until now, no one had obtained it. However, Tianyang was only a half-step Spirit Sea Realm cultivator, but he could have such strength. It seemed that it was very likely that he had obtained the inheritance of the Great Void Emperor. Not bad, not bad. When we return to the mountain, I will definitely report to the sect leader and let young Master Bai Zhuan raise your position. Venerable Ironbone smiled. Hearing this, Bai Ying nodded, and a trace of joy flashed in his eyes. Now, he was already the quasi-young master of the Heavenly Yin Mountain. If he was promoted, then he would be the young master of the Heavenly Yin Mountain. At that time, the entire Heavenly Yin Mountain would be under his control. Huh. Tianyang, this time, I have to thank you. Bai Ying laughed loudly. Venerables would not easily open their mouths, but once they did, they would definitely fulfill their promises. With the support of a venerable, his chances of becoming the real young master had increased by a bit. All right, there's no time to lose. Boy, do you want to hand over the inheritance of the Great Void Emperor first and then kill yourself? Or do you want me to kill you and then extract the inheritance of the Great Void Emperor from your soul? Venerable Ironbone looked greedily at Tianyang and said. The surrounding people also stared at Tianyang. As long as Tianyang said no, Then they would strike like thunder and blast Tianyang into pieces. It was true that Tianyang's strength was strong, but he was only around the 4th level of the Sea of Soul Realm. Here, there were many spirit kings. Tianyang, you're going to die at the hands of venerable Ironbone anyway. Why don't you just hand over the inheritance of the Great Void Emperor? This way, you can die a little faster. The inheritance of the Great Void Emperor is something that those of us who live around the Great Void secret realm can have. Tianyang, with your strength, you are not worthy. Tianyang, don't make a mistake. Everyone spoke one after another, and the greed in their eyes was not concealed. Sensing the sudden change in the surrounding atmosphere, Tianyang also smiled faintly and made a decision in his heart. You want the inheritance? Tianyang chuckled. Hearing this, everyone nodded. At this moment, Tianyang's lips curled into a smile. Then come and get it yourself. Tianyang laughed loudly. Hearing this, everyone's faces turned ashen and directly attacked. Kid, you're courting death. Venerable Ironbone was the first to attack, and the true essence of the peak 8th level of the Sea of Soul Realm in his body burst out. Half-step heaven rank martial technique. Ironbone heaven-destroying palm. Countless true essences gathered, and a terrifying metal storm erupted from venerable Ironbone's hand. As for the others, they made their moves as well. Earth rank upper martial technique. Flaming Sky Demon Fist. Sky Flame Fist. Sky Shattering Blade. Limitless Saint Sword. Countless Sea of Soul Realm experts attacked one after another, as if they were above all the pressure in the world, enveloping the entire world. At this moment, Tianyang smiled faintly as he looked at the attacks that were all capable of killing him. Shin Tian Wuzuan, let me borrow your all-heaven sword. Tianyang laughed loudly, and the energy in his mind instantly erupted. At this moment, all-heaven sword in the depths of Sword Star City suddenly trembled. Chapter 546. 10,000 swords returned to origin. When the energy given by Shun Tian Wuzuan in Tianyang's mind began to tremble, the entire world changed. It was as if an expert who was above the world had descended. Rolling pressure pressed down on the group of experts. Their faces changed drastically, and they felt that they couldn't move at all. Even Venerable Ironbone was no exception. What's going on? Venerable Ironbone's face changed drastically as he looked at his immobile body in disbelief. It was not just his torso and limbs. He could not even blink his eyes or shake his head. It was as if the entire time and space had stopped. However, although the sky was oppressed, the clouds that were still moving forward in an extremely subtle manner were telling them that this was not a phenomenon of heaven and earth. What did you do? Venerable Ironbone roared and sent a spiritual message to Tianyang. However, Tianyang smiled faintly when he heard this. He was the only person in this world who could move. Seeing this scene, how could the group of people not see Tianyang's uniqueness? Their faces changed drastically. Tianyang could actually cause such a situation? How is this possible? Tianyang was just a genius from a third-rate force, the Star Sword sect. I didn't do anything. I just used some of my trump cards. Tianyang chuckled. Venerable Ironbone was even angrier when he heard this. Trump cards? What kind of trump cards could make him a peak 8th level Sea of Soul Realm expert? So miserable. Tianyang really deserved to die. Forget it. No matter what, you're a dying man. Stand there and accept your death obediently. Tianyang said faintly. At this moment, a stream of light flashed and turned into the all-heaven sword, which appeared in his hand. In an instant, the surrounding pressure became even more terrifying. Previously, although Venerable Ironbone's body had been restricted, his mind had still been able to move. However, when he was suppressed by this oppressive might, he even felt that his mind had become much slower. Venerable Ironbone was even more shocked. I almost forgot. This all-heaven sword is also an existence that surpasses the spirit weapon. Tianyang looked at the situation where everyone's eyes suddenly became dull. He was slightly taken aback, then shook his head and chuckled. At this time, Tianyang's third-level sea of soul realm martial soul talent, Devour Heaven, had recovered. However, with the support of Shuntian Wuzun's power, Tianyang's strength was comparable to a half-step Heaven Ascension realm expert. It would be a piece of cake to kill this group of almighty warriors who were at most at the 8th level of Sea of Soul Realm. In the next moment, the all-heavens sword shone with a terrifying light. Tianyang directly. An extremely sharp aura swept through the entire area. Before the sword was drawn, it had already condensed into a storm of sword chi. No! Venerable Iron Bone forcefully broke free from the restriction of the pressure and roared. How can an ant have this kind of strength? Die! Die! Venerable Iron Bone roared. In the next moment, his true yuan and blood burned. His entire cultivation soared at this moment, vaguely showing the aura of breaking through to the 9th level of Sea of Soul Realm. After Venerable Iron Bone broke free, those people also burned their true yuan and blood, releasing an incomparably terrifying power. In the next moment, everyone directly attacked. Kid, this kind of treasure is not something you can control. It's better to give it to me. The person who attacked was a pot-bellied peak 4th level Sea of Soul Realm expert. A greedy light flashed in his eyes as he blasted out a palm towards Tianyang. Seeing this, the group of people around the teleportation gate all revealed terrified expressions. This person was a tyrant in the surrounding area. He was infamous for killing tens of thousands of mortal cultivators. This move was also this person's famous consummate skill. With a palm strike, it could easily split mountains and split the earth. If Tianyang was hit, he would most likely die. This kind of ant dares to attack me? Tianyang seemed to have returned to the Tianji Sword Emperor from 10,000 years ago. He looked at this person indifferently and gently swung the all-heavens sword in his hand. A terrifying sword light soared in the wind and directly shattered this person's attack, blasting him into a pile of minced meat. A fierce person of a generation died an unnatural death. Seeing this, the surrounding people's expressions changed greatly. Even this middle-aged man was dead? Then wouldn't they, who were about the same strength, be killed in an instant? The inheritance of the Taishu Emperor. This must be the inheritance of the Taishu Emperor. Everyone attacked together. Kill Tianyang and seize the inheritance. Kill Tianyang and seize the inheritance. Everyone roared and unleashed the strongest martial skills they've ever used in their lives. They attacked ferociously. Wind, fire, water, light, thunder, sword light, fist mark. In an instant, countless attacks containing 4th level Sea of Soul Realm and above fell on Tianyang. Pathetic. Tianyang shook his head, showing some pity. These people had been blinded by the Taishu Emperor's inheritance, forgetting the difference in strength between them. Venerable Iron Bone had not even made a move, and these people were already impatient. Did they think that they were stronger than Venerable Iron Bone? Sky Tier Sword Art, 4th Sword Firmament. Tianyang snorted coldly and slashed out. Shatter the firmament, trample the clouds. Bolstered by Shantian Wuzun's power, this sword was untold times more powerful than the firmament sword he used to kill the sky demon Cult Elder. Boom! The attacks of the Sea of Soul Realm elites clashed viciously with the firmament sword. However, the collision only lasted for a few seconds, and after a few seconds, the situation seemed to have turned one-sided, leaning towards the heavenly sun. The firmament sword destroyed all of these people's attacks as easily as breaking rotten wood. What? How is this possible? Seeing this scene, the face of the only 6th level Sea of Soul Realm elite in the group changed greatly. He roared in disbelief, burning his true yuan madly, wanting to escape. However, in the next moment, this high and mighty Spirit King elite was killed by this sword. Run! He's not Tianyang. He's a devil. Outer Realm demon. The other Spirit King was almost scared out of his wits as he screamed and wailed. Hearing this, a wave of fear shrouded the minds of the elites. In the next moment, they all used all of their life-saving skills, wanting to escape. In their eyes, Tianyang was already invincible. Unfortunately, countless attacks were turned into dust in an instant, and one by one, millions of Sea of Soul Realm elites died a violent death. Under Tianyang's sword, this group of people were all dead. Damn it, how could this Tianyang have such terrifying power? Seeing this scene, Venerable Ironbone's face was ashen. The Tianyang before was just a guy he could bully at will. Why was he so terrifying now? It's definitely an incomparably powerful treasure. Opportunity. Maybe it's the inheritance of the Great Void Emperor. Venerable Ironbone stared fixedly at Tianyang, roaring in his heart. But Venerable Ironbone was deeply aware of one thing as he looked at Tianyang, who was standing in the void with a long sword in his hand and looking down on the world. He couldn't beat him. Young Master Baijuan run. Venerable Ironbone screamed and pulled up the White Shadow, who was scared out of his wits, and rushed in a certain direction. As long as they escaped to the headquarters of the Heavenly Een Mountain, with the Heavenly Een Mountain's foundation, they could easily kill Tianyang. Hearing this, the White Shadow came back to his senses and looked at Tianyang tremblingly. Can you escape? Hearing this, Venerable Ironbone's heart sank. At this moment, Tianyang turned around. The corners of his mouth curled up slightly as Tianyang smiled. Chapter 547. Try to run. Tianyang smiled faintly, but he did not take a step forward. To him, there was no difference whether Venerable Ironbone was faster by a few dozen seconds or a few dozen minutes. One strand of Shuntian Wuzun's power was enough for him to use for a full 2 hours. Even if Venerable Ironbone ran to the northern wilderness region in 2 hours, Tianyang could get him back in more than an hour with the power and speed of a half-step ascension state. After all, the ascension state was the pinnacle of this world, and Shuntian Wuzun was a terrifying person who had surpassed the ascension state and reached the Wuzun state. Although Shuntian Wuzun's power could only allow him to reach the half-step ascension state, in terms of quality, he was much stronger than those half-step ascension states. Therefore, Venerable Ironbone could run however he wanted, and Tianyang could not be bothered to chase him. However, looking at the talisman in Venerable Ironbone's hand, Tianyang's eyes narrowed slightly. He could tell that this was the 10,000 miles godly traveling talisman, which was countless times rarer than the boundary-breaking talisman. The 10,000 miles godly traveling talisman naturally could not only cover a distance of 10,000 miles. It was possible to cover a distance of 1,000,000 miles in an instant. If Venerable Ironbone activated the 10,000 miles godly traveling talisman, it would be difficult for him to catch up. The most troublesome thing about this talisman was that it would not leave any traces for others to track. Hurry up! Hurry up! Tianyang is catching up. You're a venerable, so why is it taking you so long to activate a talisman? At this moment, White Shadow screamed at Venerable Ironbone, who was trying his best to activate the 10,000 miles godly traveling talisman. At this moment, he no longer had the aura of the quasi-young master of the Heavenly Een Mountain. He kept yelling, as if this crazy yelling could immediately make him return to the Heavenly Een Mountain. A fierce look flashed in Venerable Ironbone's eyes, but when he thought of White Shadow's terrifying background, Venerable Ironbone forcefully suppressed it. Although White Shadow himself was very talented, he was not a threat. However, Vice Sect Leader Bai, who stood behind White Shadow, was enough to make Venerable Ironbone tremble. The Heavenly Een Mountain had been passed down since 10,000 years ago. Even though it had been heavily injured by the Tianji Sword Emperor, it had still stubbornly survived, so it naturally had something to rely on. Countless experts were what he relied on. In the Heavenly Een Mountain, there was one Ascension Realm Sect leader and 3 half-step Ascension Realm Vice Sect leaders. As for Bai Yin's grandfather, Vice Sect Leader Bai, he was the strongest of the 3 Vice Sect leaders. Previously, Venerable Ironbone had only shown goodwill to White Shadow to please Deputy Hierarch Bai. He did not even spare White Shadow a glance. You're in such a hurry to leave? This Sword Star City is a place with beautiful scenery. Why don't you stay for a while longer? At this moment, Tianyang used a secret technique to cross the void and came to Venerable Ironbone's side. Hearing that terrifying young voice, Venerable Ironbone could not help but tremble all over. His expression was stiff as he turned his head. He saw that Tianyang was standing beside him, holding the all-heavens sword and exuding an incomparably terrifying aura, facing Venerable Ironbone. Feeling the terrifying aura from his body at close range, Venerable Ironbone's face suddenly turned pale. Why did this aura give him the feeling that he was facing the three vice sect leaders of the heavenly Een Mountain? Could it be that Tianyang was already half a step to Ascension Realm? How is this possible? It's definitely the inheritance of the Taishu Emperor. Definitely. Venerable Ironbone roared in his heart. At this moment, White Shadow, who was caught by him, began to tremble all over. Tianyang. White Shadow was trembling all over. He pointed at Tianyang and roared in disbelief. Hearing this, Tianyang's eyes narrowed slightly, and he chuckled. What? Surprised? White Shadow nodded. In the next moment, the all-heavens sword in Tianyang's hand flashed. A sharp aura instantly pressed down on the White Shadow. You're not allowed to attack the young master. Seeing Tianyang attack, Venerable Ironbone could not care about himself anymore. He hurriedly roared and freed a hand to attack Tianyang. If he died, so be it. If White Shadow died and he was still alive, then the furious vice sect leader White Shadow would definitely punish him severely. Venerable Ironbone, who had seen and presided over countless cruel torture ceremonies in the heavenly Een Mountain, knew very well that under those punishments, one could neither live nor die. Did I say I was going to attack? Tianyang smiled faintly, and the all-heavens sword returned to normal. However, at this moment, a stench came from White Shadow's crotch and a few drops of mixed yellow liquid flowed out from between his legs. Seeing this, Tianyang's expression changed, and he left with a look of disgust. As for Venerable Ironbone, his expression turned ugly. This guy, he actually lost control of his bowels. Tianyang, you don't dare to kill us. Venerable Ironbone looked coldly at Tianyang as he sealed off his sense of smell and touch. White Shadow's grandfather is our heavenly Een Mountain's vice sect leader, White Shadow, an existence at the peak of the half-step Ascension Realm. He can crush countless of you with one finger. If you attack us, the furious vice sect leader White Shadow will definitely kill you and raise the Star Swordplay sect to the ground. Venerable Ironbone said arrogantly, but he was also anxious. Why was the 1,000-mile godly travel talisman not ready yet? However, Tianyang smiled faintly when he heard this. The peak of the half-step Ascension Realm? By the time he finds me, I might already be able to kill him. However, the reason you're threatening me like this is to make me fearful, so that you can buy time to escape. Tianyang smiled faintly. Hearing this, Venerable Ironbone's expression changed drastically. However, at this moment, Tianyang pointed his finger. Boom! An incomparably terrifying aura burst out, and a finger ray with the power of a half-step heavenly completion expert pierced through the air, directly shooting at the 1,000 miles godly traveler talisman. The 10,000 miles godly traverser talisman was only a talisman, not a spirit artifact with a powerful defensive ability. Thus, it was directly pierced through. The spatial door that was about to open also collapsed in an instant. Ah! Venerable Ironbone was furious. He roared at the sky, his eyes instantly turning red. Tianyang, I'll kill you. Let's talk about it when you have the strength. Tianyang chuckled. In the next moment, he released the last bit of Shuntian Wuzuan's power. Half-step heaven tier martial arts technique. Ironbone shattering star. Venerable Ironbone roared. In the next moment, his palm turned into cold iron bones and blasted out. This was Venerable Ironbone's martial soul, a special martial soul that could turn all the bones in his body into metal. It was an upper-grade Earth-tier peak martial soul, Ironbone. At this moment, an upper-grade Earth-tier martial soul and a half-step heaven-tier martial art technique burst out at the same time. The entire world was shaken. However, seeing this terrifying scene, Tianyong only smiled faintly. Peerless heaven-tier martial art technique. 10,000 swords in origin. A sword slashed out. Heaven and earth shattered. 10,000 swords chimed in unison. Iron bone shattered. Venerable iron bone and the white shadow. Chapter 548. In an ordinary mortal town in the middle of the central region. This town was called Tianwen Town. It had a domineering name, but it was just an ordinary town. In Tianwen Town, a banquet was being held in a tall building. It's all thanks to you, Brother Bai, that our Tianwen Town survived. A sturdy-looking middle-aged man said. Hearing this, in front of him, an old man who looked to be in his 60s or 70s without a single strand of white hair nodded. There were so many demons. Even the only cultivator in our town couldn't defeat them. I didn't expect Brother Bai to be so secretive. You're amazing, said the middle-aged man with a smile. Hearing that, the old man called Brother Bai nodded and smiled. I've lived in your town for a few years. It's impossible for me to not help when the town is in trouble. That's true, but thank you. Let's drink until we're drunk today. The middle-aged man laughed, pulled Brother Bai up, and walked into the banquet. At the side, men and women of all ages raised their wine cups and clinked them with Brother Bai's before downing it. This is good wine that I've brewed for 20 years. I couldn't bear to open it. Now, I'll let you drink the first cup, said the middle-aged man with a smile. Brother Bai nodded and raised his wine cup, about to drink. In the next moment, Brother Bai's pupils constricted and his aura exploded. The aura of a half-step to heaven ascension. Inga, my Inger was killed. Old Brother White roared towards the sky. At this moment, the middle-aged man's expression changed greatly. Old Brother White, what are you? My grandson is dead. How can you survive? Brother Bai roared crazily. In the next moment, he flipped the table and stood up. The aura of a half-step to heaven ascension exploded. The strongest cultivator in Tianwen Town was the middle-aged man's son, the mayor of Tianwen Town. However, his cultivation was only at the essence transformation realm. How could he withstand the aura of a half-step to heaven ascension realm? In an instant, he turned into a bloody mist and died a violent death. On the other hand, the middle-aged man's face was filled with shock from the pressure, and he was unable to catch his breath. In the next moment, he was directly crushed by the pressure. Before he died, there was still a look of disbelief in his eyes. Brother Bai, in the next moment, the middle-aged mayor directly turned into a cloud of blood mist. As for Brother Bai, who was Heavenly Een Mountain's vice-sect leader Bai, he didn't care about the lives of these mortals and directly stood up. There was a flash of fury in his eyes. I remember that Ing said that he and Tai Gu were going to the eastern part of the central region. The eastern part of the central region. The eastern part of the central region. Eastern central region. I don't care who you are. All of you must die. Vice-sect leader Bai roared angrily. In the next moment, he smashed through the tall mayor's house and soared into the sky. In the next moment, he looked at the people coming and going under his feet. Those people who hadn't noticed the change in the mayor's house yet directly attacked. Boom! A terrifying energy shock wave instantly destroyed the entire Tianwen Town. From then on, there was no more Tianwen Town in the central region. As for vice-sect leader Bai, who had slaughtered the town, his expression was indifferent. He directly soared into the sky and left. He wanted to go to the Heavenly Een Mountain headquarters and use all the power of the Heavenly Een Mountain to search for the whereabouts of the person who killed Bai Ying. Tianyong looked at the two people who had exploded into a pool of flesh and blood in front of him with a calm expression. In his heart, he was also secretly amazed. The power of this 10,000 swords return to origin was indeed powerful. Although the previous him had the power of a half-step ascension realm, it was not an easy task to kill Venerable Tai Gu. In the end, the moment he used 10,000 swords return to origin, Venerable Tai Gu and Bai Ying were instantly killed. As expected of a powerful martial technique that was comparable to a peerless heaven-tier martial technique with one move. However, although 10,000 swords return to origin is strong, the consumption of vital essence is also quite huge. Tianyang looked at the all-heavens sword in his hand and couldn't help but mutter to himself. The power of Shintian Wuzuan that he used could maintain his half-step ascension realm strength for 2 hours under normal circumstances. However, after using 10,000 swords return to origin, the power of Shintian Wuzuan had instantly shrunk greatly. Now, it could only be maintained for 10-20 minutes at most. If he encountered some powerful enemy during this period of time, it would be troublesome. However, looking at the dead, injured, and fleeing people in the surroundings, Tianyang curled his lips. There was simply no powerful enemy here. And at this moment, just as Tianyang was about to release Ling Yuhan and Tai Wuji from the Heaven Origin Tower, a mournful sound suddenly rang out. Heavens! How could so many spirit kings and sea of soul realm experts have died? A shocked voice rang out from within a fiery red stream of light. Hearing this, Tianyang's expression changed slightly. This voice was somewhat familiar. I sensed Venerable Ironbone's aura, but it's so weak that it's almost dead. What's going on? In the east of Central Region, the number of people who can kill Venerable Ironbone doesn't exceed 5. However, these people are all holed up in their own territories, cultivating peacefully. How could they be here? Another deep voice rang out, and in the next moment, a cry of pleasant surprise rang out. Tianyang! Father, Tianyang is over there. Hearing this, Tianyang immediately recalled that this voice was clearly Jun Aoyang's. From what he'd heard before, this Jun Aoyang seemed to have even called for reinforcements for him. I see it. No. The fiery red stream of light was just about to slow down, but the moment the middle-aged man sensed Tianyang's aura, his expression changed greatly. How could this young man's aura be comparable to his father's, the ancestor of the Sun-Moon sect? This person was definitely not the Tianyang that Jun Aoyang spoke of. However, Tianyang also saw the two's strange expressions. He chuckled lightly and extended his hand, stopping the two's figures. It's been a long time, not too long. Anyway, we meet again, Flame Sovereign King. Tianyang smiled. Hearing this, Jun Aoyang, who had noticed his father's strange expression, smiled bitterly and looked at Tianyang. Every time I see you, I always feel that the gap between us is widened. However, we meet again, Azura Sword King. Jun Aoyang smiled. Hearing this, Tianyang also extended his hand and shook Jun Aoyang's hand. At this moment, the middle-aged man beside Jun Aoyang shuddered and immediately shielded Jun Aoyang behind him. Younger, be careful. I can't even beat this person. He's definitely not Tianyang. Who knows, this guy might be Venerable Ironbone in disguise. With the character of those bastards in Lunar Mountain, it's extremely possible. The middle-aged man said loudly and released his 8th level C of Soul Realm aura. He stood in front of Jun Aoyang with a grave expression, as if he was afraid that Jun Aoyang would be killed by Tianyang. Hearing this, Jun Aoyang. Chapter 549. Black lines appeared on Tianyang's forehead as he looked at the suspicious middle-aged man. I'm Heavenly Son, without a doubt. The middle-aged man still looked as if he was lying. Venerable Ironbone, I'm telling you, don't even think about doing anything to my son. Others might be afraid of your heavenly mountain, but my Sun-Moon sect isn't. If you push me too far, I'll kill you right now. Do you believe me? The middle-aged man said fiercely. He knew that with Tianyang's tyrannical aura, even if he attacked with his full strength, he would have no chance of winning. However, behind him was his own son. As a father, even if he had to die, he could not let his son suffer any harm. However, the middle-aged man's awe-inspiring righteousness, as if he was about to sacrifice himself, made Tianyang feel even more helpless. At this moment, Jun Aoyang whispered a few words to the middle-aged man. The middle-aged man's expression returned to normal, and he looked at Tianyang in shock. Is that true? This was directed at Jun Aoyang. Jun Aoyang had just told the middle-aged man that Tianyang had obtained the inheritance of the Emperor of Taishu. Now, In order to deal with Venerable Iron Bone and the others, he might have used the trump card given by the Emperor of Taishu. It was not difficult to use the trump card of the Emperor of Taishu to achieve this. Although it had not been proven, the middle-aged man was already 80% convinced. If Tianyong knew what these two people were thinking, he would probably be speechless. The inheritance of the Emperor of Taishu was really an excuse. Previously, it was too dazzling and outstanding, attracting suspicion. From now on, as long as it was linked to the inheritance of the Emperor of Taishu, it would be logical. Jun Aoyang nodded. Moreover, Tianyong has a very special spiritual fire called the Heavenly Annihilation Fire. It's much stronger than the Heavenly Flames. You can let him take a look. Apart from Tianyong, no one else has seen this kind of spiritual fire before. No one else has it. In other words, in the entire Heaven continent, it's very likely that Tianyong is the only one who has it. Jun Aoyang said. His words were filled with envy and jealousy. His flames were also extremely powerful, but they were nothing compared to Tianyong's heavenly annihilation flames. However, when he heard this, the middle-aged man's expression changed slightly. A new spiritual fire. The Sun Moon sect was a sect that played with fire. They were very familiar with most of the spiritual flames in the world. The middle-aged man was like that, and so was Jun Aoyang. However, even Jun Aoyang had never seen it before. This spiritual fire must be extremely rare. Little brother, can you let this old man have a look at that heavenly annihilation flame? The middle-aged man shamelessly approached Tianyong and said. Hearing this, Tianyong shrugged and reached out his hand. A black golden flame rose into the air. The middle-aged man's expression instantly changed drastically when he saw this, and he was extremely shocked as he gazed at this ball of black and gold flames. Fourth stage, no, a spiritual fire comparable to the fifth stage. Tianyong definitely did not just possess the inheritance of the Great Void Emperor. He definitely has the support of other great factions. Otherwise, even a Sea of Soul Realm expert would find it extremely difficult to refine a fifth-stage spiritual fire. A 17-year-old kid would definitely not be able to refine it. The middle-aged man's heart was in turmoil. He did not expect Tianyong to be so strong. In the next moment, the middle-aged man put away his contempt and looked at Tianyong solemnly as he reached out his hand. My name is Jun Tian, the leader of the Sun Moon sect. People call me Glorious Sun Spirit King, the middle-aged man said. Hearing this, Tianyong raised his brows. Leader of the Sun Moon sect? This flame monarch's background was not weak at all. However, Tianyong's expression did not change, and he smiled faintly. Tianyong, Star Sword sect. As for my title, I don't have one yet. Then, the two of them shook hands. However, seeing this, Jun Aoyang's mouth opened so wide that a large duck egg could be stuffed into it. This was something that his father would only do to someone of the same level, or even someone of a higher level. Even the second elder of the Sun Moon sect did not have such an honor. Did this not mean that Tianyong was on the same level as the leader of the Sun Moon sect, and was equivalent to the great elder of the Sun Moon sect? If this spread out, it would definitely cause an uproar in the eastern part of the central region. No title. Hearing this, Jun Tian was stunned. Then he understood. Tianyong came from the firmament territory, and his rise in the central region was extremely short. From the battle at the Star Sword sect to the present, it had only been half a year. Half a year was really too short for a cultivator. It was so short that Tianyong had already done such a great thing, but he did not have the slightest intention of being famous. However, although Tianyong did not have a title, Jun Tian did not have the slightest intention of looking down on him. Being able to obtain the inheritance of the Great Void Emperor was enough to prove Tianyong's strength. Now, he might not be strong enough, but in the future, as long as he did not die prematurely, he would definitely be a huge figure. All right, I reckon that after you took action, Venerable Ironbone and that group of people who betrayed righteousness at the sight of profit are already dead. It seems like my reinforcements are useless. Jun Tian looked around and saw the scene of corpses strewn all over the place. He secretly clicked his tongue. This Tianyang was not only strong, but also very decisive in his actions. The number of Sea of Soul Realm experts who died here was at least 30. In other places, there were people who could cause the entire region to tremble with a stomp of their feet. However, they still turned into corpses here. Hearing this, Tianyang shrugged. Although he was not a homicidal maniac, he was not afraid of killing people. Those who killed would be killed by others. Tianyang was already merciful that he did not kill the group of witnesses. That's right, little friend Tianyang. Your strength is so tyrannical. I guess there is no place in the entire Sword Star City that you can explore. At this moment, Jun Tian seemed to have thought of something and chuckled. Why don't you come to the Sun Moon sect? Central region, Stars Sword sect. Damn it, our Stars Sword sect has only been recuperating for 3 months. Why is there someone coming to kill us again? Our Star Sword sect is only a third-rate force. Blood flowed from the corner of Zhou Tong's mouth. Holding a long sword, the true essence within his body went berserk. Only then did he blast away the attack of the person in front of him. If others saw Zhou Tong, they would absolutely be shocked. He had actually already reached the peak of the 2nd level of the Sea of Soul Realm. He was only a step away from the 3rd level of the Sea of Soul Realm. One had to know that the last time they met, Zhou Tong was only at the 1st level of the Sea of Soul Realm. The combination of Sword Spirit Body and Heavenly Cycle Stellar Sword Scripture was indeed powerful. However, humph. Sword Spirit Zhou Tong. Powerful as expected, but still not my match. One person was blasted away by Zhou Tong, but the other person snorted coldly. In the next moment, he directly punched out. The true essence of the 3rd level of the Sea of Soul Realm erupted. Chapter 550. Are you interested in coming to my Sun Moon sect? Jun Tian smiled. Tianyang's eyes narrowed slightly. He had just killed Venerable Iron Bone of the Heavenly Een Mountain, so the Heavenly Een Mountain would probably find him soon. At that time, Heavenly Sun would be a hot potato, and it was even the kind that could not be eaten. This Jun Tian actually wanted him to go to the Sun Moon sect? Was he not afraid of getting burned? However, when he saw Jun Tian's grin, Tianyang's expression changed slightly. He didn't have anywhere to go right now. With Zhou Tong taking the lead, the Star Swordplay sect would definitely develop well. There was no use for him to go back. As for wandering in the central region, there were countless fierce beasts in the central region, and Tianyang did not have any plans at the moment. It was not impossible to go to the Sun Moon sect to rest. But just as Tianyang opened his mouth, the communication token in Tianyang's space bag suddenly began to vibrate rapidly. Seeing this, Tianyang's expression changed slightly, and he took out the communication token. Only a handful of people could cause the communication token to tremble so violently. Dao Feiyang, Ling Yuhan, and Zhou Tong. Only these 3 people could cause his communication token to vibrate like this. As for the others, even if they were beaten to a pulp, it would still be impossible for it to be like this. However, Dao Feiyang was far away in the firmament territory, far beyond the range of the communication token. Ling Yuhan, on the other hand, was in the Heavenly Yuan Tower. The only possibility was Zhou Tong. Did something happen to the Stars Swordplay sect? Tianyang muttered to himself. Then, he carefully read the message from Zhou Tong, and his face suddenly turned ashen. The Stars Swordplay sect was attacked. Return quickly. Return quickly. This was the first message. Don't come back. 3rd level Sea of Soul Realm. I can't hold on any longer. This was the second message. After that, there was no more news. According to the vibration of the true yuan on the communication token, Tianyang also found that this message was sent 3 minutes ago. Taking into account the delay caused by the long distance, this meant that this message had been sent for at least 10 minutes. 10 minutes. For a 3rd level Sea of Soul Realm, 10 minutes was enough to slaughter the Stars Swordplay sect. Damn it! Tianyang almost broke his teeth, and his eyes burned with rage. He did not even need to think to know that those people coveted his Emperor Taishu's inheritance, but could not beat him, so they ran to the Stars Swordplay sect. At the beginning, there were already people running away. At that time, Tianyang was busy killing experts above the 4th level of Sea of Soul Realm and had no time to care about them. Later on, he didn't pursue them, but he never thought that these people would actually have the opportunity to sneak attack the star's swordplay sect. Young friend Tianyang, what's going on? At this time, Jun Tian also noticed Tianyang's extremely unsightly expression and asked. Hearing this, Tianyang forcibly calmed his anger and explained. The next moment, he was just about to circulate his true yuan and leave. At this time, Jun Tian chuckled. Since it's like this with young friend Tianyang's current cultivation, it'll take at least 10 minutes to rush over. 10 minutes? Maybe the battle has already ended. I have a spirit tool here called the Soaring Shuttle. Its speed is extremely fast. If I control it, I can reach the star's swordplay sect in 5 minutes. Jun Tian said. Hearing this, Tianyang's eyes lit up. Then please help me. I'll definitely go to the Sun Moon sect. Hearing this, Jun Tian smiled. He could see the anxiety in Tianyang's heart and did not dawdle in the slightest, directly summoning the Soaring Shuttle. The Soaring Shuttle was 300 feet long and 10 feet wide. Its entire body was shaped like a shuttle, and it emitted the fluctuations of a mid-grade spirit tool. However, Tianyang could see that the runes and arrays on it were all used to increase speed. The only defensive array rune was not even 1% of the Heavenly Towers. This Soaring Shuttle was a mid-grade spirit artifact that was specially made for traveling. Seeing this, Tianyang's heart was slightly moved. The Sun Moon sect's financial resources were indeed impressive. They specially made a mid-grade spirit tool for traveling. In terms of foundation, they were probably close to some of the weaker martial holy lands. The star's swordplay sect is here. Maybe it won't even take 5 minutes. The three of them entered the Soaring Shuttle one after another. Jun Tian pinpointed the location of the star's swordplay sect on the map, turned around, and directly rushed out. The Soaring Shuttle's terrifying speed instantly broke through the sound barrier, shattered the space, and escaped into the void. In a short second, it crossed dozens of miles. This was just the beginning. As for Tianyang, he did not pay attention to his surroundings at all. His gaze was fixed on the constantly shattering space in front of him. The Star Swordplay sect was the only obsession of the Zhou Xing Sword Saint. As his brother, Tianyang, how could he let it be destroyed by the hands of his enemy? The Star's Swordplay sect. After being invaded by the Purple Sun sect, the Star's Swordplay sect was already riddled with scars. After this battle, it was directly turned into a pile of ruins. On the mountaintop, there were dead and injured. Blood flowed like a river. Countless bodies with broken arms and legs were lying in every corner. Most of the buildings were also burning fiercely. Almost the entire Star Swordplay sect was destroyed in a single day. Damn it! Zhou Tong looked at the three people in front of him with a ferocious gaze. It was all because of these three people that the Star's Swordplay sect suffered such a great calamity. Those who died were all elders and deacons who had watched him grow up. There were also disciples of the sect who were on good terms with him. Usually, they would talk and laugh with him. Now, they had turned into cold corpses. I say, it's about enough that we've reduced the Star's Swordplay sect to this state. If we continue, I'm afraid there won't be any value left. It's also not possible to force Tianyang to hand over the inheritance of the Taishu Emperor. The three of them stood in the sky, laughing as they spoke. Their eyes flashed with a greedy light from time to time. Hearing those words, Zhou Tong, who was standing below with his entire body sealed, felt waves of despair. He seemed to be able to survive, but in reality, it was only because these three wanted to keep him alive to threaten Tianyang. Therefore, 10 minutes ago, Zhou Tong told Tianyang not to come over. Apart from the fact that Tianyang couldn't beat these people, it was also because if Tianyang came, he would definitely use him to exchange for them. At that time, Tianyang would beg for death. It was Zhou Tong who invited Tianyang to the Taishu secret realm. Now, Tianyang had obtained the inheritance of the Taishu Emperor, which was also the glory of the Star's Swordplay sect. The Star's Swordplay sect couldn't let this glory be destroyed by their own hands. At this time, the three third-level Sea of Soul Realm experts' expressions suddenly changed. Now, almost all of them are dead. Who can go and contact Tianyang? Tell him that as long as he hands over the inheritance of the Taishu Emperor, the entire Star's swordplay sect will be restored to its original state. A Sea of Soul Realm expert looked down at the countless disciples below and said indifferently. Hearing this, countless disciples clenched their teeth, revealing a trace of anger. At this time, a cold snort came from afar. No need to contact him. I'll take your dog life now. In the next moment, a light flashed, and Tianyang's figure appeared in front of this person. Seeing this, the third-level Sea of Soul Realm expert's expression changed greatly. Then, he sensed that Tianyang no longer had the aura of a half-step reaching Heaven Realm. He laughed loudly and said greedily, "The current you actually dares to appear in front of me? Die for me. The inheritance of the Taishu Emperor is mine." The third-level Sea of Soul Realm expert laughed wildly, and in the next moment, he directly punched out. Seeing this, Tianyang's expression was ice-cold, and the cultivation of a half-step Sea of Soul Realm expert erupted. Dragon King Divine Fist, 10,000 dragons slaughtering gods. Countless huge dragons of Dragon Chi shot out, directly destroying the third-level Sea of Soul Realm expert's fist and penetrating his chest. Blood spurted out from his heart, and even his soul was crushed by the endless dragon power. Seeing this scene, Zhotong was dumbfounded. The moment he appeared, it was the third-level Sea of Soul Realm expert, who was previously high and mighty. Chapter 551. Bang! With a single punch, a third-level Sea of Soul Realm expert was reduced to ashes. Tianyang's expression was extremely cold as he coldly looked at the crowd before him. His heart was filled with rage. Dragons had reverse scales, and those who touched them would be infuriated. Tianyang's reverse scales were his companions. Star's swordplay sect was also included. In the end, Star's swordplay sect was almost annihilated by these three people. If he didn't care about the inheritance of Emperor Taishu, perhaps even Zhotong wouldn't still be alive. Thinking of this, Tianyang was naturally enraged to the extreme. The two third-level Sea of Soul Realm experts were also trembling as they looked at Tianyang in disbelief. Peak half-step Sea of Soul Realm experts were no more than ants to them. However, within a single move, he had killed a third-level Sea of Soul Realm martial artist who was traveling with them. This kind of strength, this kind of talent, was simply terrifying. Among the three people, the face of the leader of Gold Star City, Han Qing, was already deathly pale. He had only heard that Tianyang had once killed Ku Shan with a single move. However, he was confident that his strength wouldn't lose to Ku Shan's. Moreover, it was only hearsay, so he didn't believe it at all. Therefore, he dared to attack Star's swordplay sect so openly. However, he didn't expect Tianyang's strength to be so strong. The power of the previous punch was enough to instantly kill that person. In other words, it wouldn't take much effort to instantly kill the two of them. Beside Han Qing, a middle-aged man's heart also trembled. He had received Han Qing's invitation and heard that Tianyang possessed the inheritance of Emperor Taishu. Therefore, he came. He had no enmity with Emperor Taishu in the first place. Moreover, Han Qing wasn't worth his life. However, he was already riding a tiger and couldn't get off. At this moment, Jun Tian and Jun Aoyang walked out of the soaring shuttle and immediately saw the state of Star's swordplay sect beneath their feet. Blood flowed like a river, and corpses were everywhere. Seeing this, the two's faces became much more unsightly. Jun Aoyang was the first to lose his calm. He coldly looked at the two third-level Sea of Soul Realm experts before him and directly stood out. "Who dares to fight me?" Hearing these words, the remaining two third-level Sea of Soul Realm warriors' faces turned cold. They were clear about Tianyang's strength. Although that punch before was definitely some kind of powerful martial skill, it was still extremely powerful. However, it was definitely not something they could resist. As for this first-level Sea of Soul's Realm warrior, the two of them looked at each other and read each other's thoughts from their eyes. A fierce look flashed across their eyes. Tianyang couldn't win, and the mysterious middle-aged man couldn't win either. In that case, he would capture this young man first. As long as they captured Jun Ao Yang, Tianyang and Jun Tian would naturally let them go. At that time, all they had to do was find a place in the forest and conceal their identities. Then, no one would know who they were. Go! The two of them nodded, and in the next moment, a terrifying amount of true essence erupted from them. Two huge fist prints were formed in a frenzy. Earth Tier Upper Grade Martial Skill, Great Wind Fire Fist. Peerless Earth Tier Martial Skill, Tempest Fist. The two of them roared, and in the next moment, the two fist prints ruthlessly attacked Jun Ao Yang. Seeing this, Jun Ao Yang's expression changed slightly. He didn't think that the two of them would actually join hands to deal with him. However, in the next moment, Jun Ao Yang understood their thoughts. The corner of his mouth curled up into a cold smile. Want to capture me? Let's see if you have the means to do so first. Fire danced mysterious sky. A blazing flame ignited, and the annihilation flame was used once again. In the next moment, Jun Ao Yang waved the flame spear in his hand and directly attacked. Boom! Boom! How could this be? Annihilation flame? Annihilation! Jun Ao Yang roared, and the annihilation flame rose sharply, directly destroying one of the fist prints. Then he swung the spear in his hand, and the true essence of a first-level sea of Soul's realm exploded. Pung! Han Qing was directly sent flying. He spat out a mouthful of blood, and his face was filled with disbelief. He was ranked in the top 900 of the spirit list. In the end, he was easily sent flying by a brat? What kind of monster was this young man? At this moment, Jun Tian just reacted. He looked at Jun Ao Yang with a smile, nodded slightly, and then took a step forward. The aura of an 8th-level sea of Soul's realm swept through the entire Star's swordplay sect. Seeing this, Han Qing's pupils suddenly shrank to the extreme. Looking at Jun Tian's smiling face, a storm was set off in his heart. You're the glorious Sun Spirit King, Han Qing roared. Hearing this, Jun Tian nodded and chuckled. Seems like I'm quite famous. However, there are 3 here, 1 for each of us. Tianyang has already killed one, and my son is about to kill another. You should die earlier. Jun Tian laughed, and a murderous intent flashed in his eyes. Hearing this, Han Qing suddenly felt a chill run down his spine. The thoughts in his heart suddenly disappeared, and the only thing left was fear. Glorious Sun Spirit King. That was the leader of the Sun Moon sect, although the true strongest of the Sun Moon sect wasn't him. However, he was definitely not someone a small Gold Star City lord like him could defeat. Run! Run! Han Qing roared crazily. In the next moment, he directly turned around and burned his true yuan, ignoring the person who came with him. He randomly chose a direction and rushed out. If glorious Sun Spirit King reacted, he would definitely die without a burial place. However, if I let you escape, I don't need to be the leader anymore. Jun Tian smiled faintly. In the next moment, his palms stretched out, and a monstrous flame power condensed. Sun Moon Sect's signature move, Sun Moon Heavenly Wheel. A mysterious runic wheel appeared in Jun Tian's hand. Compared to Jun Aoyang's runic wheel, it was many times stronger. In the next moment, the Sun Moon Heavenly Wheel shot out. It expanded rapidly and directly suppressed Han Qing within. Raging flames burned fiercely. The part of the Sun Moon Heavenly Wheel that belonged to the sun exploded with shocking light, swallowing and destroying Han Qing. Gold Star City Lord, top 1,000 of the spirit list, Han Qing died. At this moment, Jun Ao Yang used all his trump cards and finally killed the other 3rd-level sea of Soul Realm. However, his body also suffered a lot of injuries. However, feeling the shackles on their bodies being lifted, countless people from the Star Swordplay sect were shocked as they looked at Tianyang and the other 2 who easily killed 3 sea of Soul Realm experts. Glorious Sun Spirit King, Sun Moon Sect, How far away were they to them? However, at this moment, they came to help their star's swordplay sect. All of this was because of Chapter 552. Above the stars' swordplay sect, Tianyang and the other two stood proudly, overlooking the land. As for the people of the star swordplay sect, they were so excited that they almost fainted. If not for Tianyang's help, the star swordplay sect's 10,000 years of foundation would have been destroyed. Counting carefully, Tianyang had saved them twice. Each time, it was more important than the last. We can't not repay such kindness. Zhou Tong's eyes flashed with determination. Then he said to Tianyang, "Thank you, Brother Tianyang, for lending a helping hand. I wonder if there's anything we can do?" Zhou Tong asked. Tianyang was slightly taken aback when he heard that. Then he chuckled and summoned the Heaven Pagoda. With a flick of his finger, the doors of the Heaven Pagoda opened. Ling Yuhan and Tai Wuji flew out. "Young Master Tian, this is..." Looking at the corpses strewn all over the place, Tai Wuji, who had just recovered a bit of his vitality, was stunned. What was going on? At this moment, Ling Yuhan's expression turned ugly. She had been to the star's swordplay sect before. She did not expect that it would be destroyed to this extent. "Yuhan, City Lord Tai, I'll give you the elixirs now. Go help the heavily injured members of the star's swordplay sect, and help Zhou Tong restore the star's swordplay sect." At this moment, Tianyang spoke. The next moment, his interspatial bag moved, and countless healing elixirs flew out from it. Hearing that, Ling Yuhan and Tai Wuji nodded. They took the elixirs and went to the star's swordplay sect. Seeing the scene of Tai Wuji and Ling Yuhan doing their best to help, Zhou Tong's body trembled and tears of gratitude flowed out of his eyes. Such a great kindness could not be repaid, even if he worked like an ox or a horse. At this moment, Ling Yuhan turned around in confusion. "Master, what are you doing?" Hearing that, Tianyang chuckled. A cold light flashed in his eyes. "Let's go and have a good talk with the culprit." After that, Tianyang and the other two entered the soaring shuttle once again and rushed out in a certain direction. His destination was Venus City. Venus City, City Lord's mansion. It was resplendent and extremely luxurious. In the most luxurious meeting hall, two middle-aged men were laughing as they clinked their wine glasses. "Now, the family head has gone out to destroy the star's swordplay sect and find trouble with Tianyang. We are about to get the inheritance of Emperor Taishu." One of the middle-aged men roared with laughter. The other middle-aged man nodded when he heard this, and a trace of greed appeared on his face. The inheritance of Emperor Taishu. That's the legacy of a great emperor. If we have the inheritance of the great Void Emperor, our Venus City will definitely surpass Sword Star City and become one of the top cities in the eastern part of the central region. At that time, Tai Wuji, the Sun Moon sect, they will all kneel at our feet. The two of them chatted and laughed, imagining the scene after receiving the inheritance of the great emperor of Taishu. It was as if the inheritance of the great emperor of Taishu and Tianyang was already theirs. At this moment, an indifferent shout suddenly spread throughout the entire place. "Everyone in the City Lord's mansion, except for the Han family, I'll give you 3 minutes to leave immediately. Otherwise, you will be killed without mercy." Hearing this, the entire City Lord's mansion was in an uproar. The two middle-aged men who were drinking in the meeting hall were also stunned. Then, their faces turned cold as they stood up. "Oomph, do you think you can be presumptuous in front of our Han family just because the family head has gone out?" One of the middle-aged men snorted coldly. In the next moment, he soared into the air and arrived at the source of the voice. The aura of a peak first-level sea of Soul Realm was slowly released. The middle-aged man's gaze was sharp as he scanned Tianyang and the other two. He snorted coldly. "Who are you? How dare you behave so atrociously in front of our Han family? Don't you know that this is the City Lord's mansion of Venus City, the family of Lord Han Qing, one of the top 1,000 on the spirit ranking?" The middle-aged man said. Hearing this, before Tianyang could say anything, Jun Tian laughed. "Even I don't dare to let my subordinates brag like this. A mere city lord is impressive. However, hearing this, the middle-aged man's face became even more gloomy. A mere city lord? Do you think you're the Tianji Sword Emperor? How dare you insult Lord Han Qing? No matter who you are, die. The middle-aged man snorted coldly. In the next moment, the aura of a peak first-level sea of Soul Realm erupted. It directly condensed into a fist and violently blasted towards Jun Tian. Medium Earth Tier, Martial Technique, Sky-Shattering Rock. The middle-aged man roared. With an incomparably violent gust of wind, he ruthlessly attacked Jun Tian. Seeing this, Jun Tian smiled indifferently. Looking at the fist in front of him, his eyes were full of disdain. An attack of this level dared to behave atrociously in front of him? He was looking down on Spirit King Glorious Sun too much. Break. Jun Tian chuckled. The 8th level sea of Soul Realm's true Yuan surged. Without even moving his finger, he directly shattered the fist. Seeing this, the middle-aged man's face changed greatly. He took a few steps back with a face of disbelief. Even Han Qing would find it extremely difficult to break his fist. Who exactly was this middle-aged man? He didn't even move and broke his sky-shattering rock. You, who are you? The middle-aged man roared. Hearing this, Jun Tian smiled faintly. You don't deserve to know my name. In the next moment, Jun Tian stretched out his hand. A blazing flame rose from the middle-aged man's feet and directly burned the middle-aged man to ashes. The Han clan's head elder dead. At this moment, Tianyang suddenly raised his eyebrows. Looking at an empty space, he said indifferently, "Since you're here, why hide?" Hearing this, Jun Tian was stunned. Jun Aoyang was stunned. They didn't know what Tianyang was trying to say. However, as soon as Tianyang said that, the space around him started to distort, and the middle-aged man who had been drinking with the Han family head elder appeared with an alarmed look on his face. There's actually a fish that escaped the net. Jun Tian's eyes narrowed slightly. Then, he took a deep look at Tianyang. He didn't even notice before, but in the end, Tianyang saw through this person's location with a single glance. This kid was not ordinary. However, seeing Jun Tian looking at him, the middle-aged man's body trembled. In the next moment, he knew that he couldn't escape. A ruthless look flashed in his eyes, and he charged towards Tianyang. This kid was at most in his teens and had come out to train. Under such circumstances, as long as he captured him, he would have a chance of survival. Seeing this, Tianyang laughed. This guy, did he think that he was a pushover? Then, Tianyang shook his head. Looking for someone to kidnap, not a bad method. However, you found the wrong person. In the next moment, a finger light pierced through the void. At the same time, it also pierced through the middle-aged man's chest. The middle-aged man's face was filled with disbelief. In the next moment, his body fell heavily, dying a violent death. After killing the middle-aged man, Tianyang didn't even bother to look at him. To him, there was no difference between a peak first-level sea of Soul Realm and a peak first-level Dao Fire Realm. Then, Tianyang and the other two took action and killed all the Han clan members in Venus City. They released the servants who didn't know anything and left. Although they were cultivators, they didn't want to kill the innocent. However, after Tianyang and the other two left, the news of the Venus City City Lord Manor being destroyed spread like a storm. In an instant, countless people sucked in a breath of cold air. Their evaluation of Tianyang also rose by a level. Chapter 553. After settling the matters in Gold Star City, Tianyang and the rest did not linger and headed straight for Sun Moon Sect. As for Tai Wuji, because of his heavy injuries, if he returned to Sword Star City, he might be targeted by his enemies. Therefore, he stayed in Star's Swordplay Sect for the time being. Zhou Tong was so grateful that he wanted to cry. After all, 7th level C of Soul Realm Spirit Kings were not cabbages that could be found anywhere. Although Tai Wuji wanted to recuperate in Star's Swordplay Sect, everyone could tell that he did so because of Tianyang's orders. Even Tai Wuji himself did not know that his relationship with Tianyang had unknowingly changed from a verbal subordinate to a true subordinate. In Heaven Tower, as there was nothing urgent, Tianyang rejected June Tion's invitation to go to the soaring shuttle. Although the Heaven Tower was not as fast as the soaring shuttle, it was still his after all. It was comfortable to sit there. Master, why are we going to Sun Moon Sect? I feel so bored. At this moment, Ling Yuhan muttered while pinching Bai Luo's face, ignoring Bai Luo's protests. Tianyang chuckled. Spirit King Gloria's son personally invited me and helped me a few times. Of course I have to go. Moreover, this Sun Moon Sect is also a first-rate force. There's no harm going there. Tianyang smiled. Ling Yuhan nodded. She did not know anything about Sun Moon Sect. Naturally, she did not want to go. Tianyang, on the other hand, knew very well. Similar to Star's Swordplay Sect, Sun Moon Sect was also a huge sect with 10,000 years of history. However, its luck was much better than Star's Swordplay sects. Although the great destruction of civilization 10,000 years ago almost destroyed Heaven Continent, Sun Moon Sect did not suffer too much. Instead, after 1,000 years of recuperation, they stepped on the road to rise again. 10,000 years ago, the leader of Sun Moon Sect was also an emperor called Sun Moon Sky Monarch. However, Lord Sun Moon was only the weakest sovereign. Tianyang did not know him and had never interacted with him before. All right, I'll go. Anyway, I'm not familiar with the central region. So, Master, you have to bring me along. Ling Yuhan pinched Bai Luo's face until it was swollen before she released her hand. She didn't care if there was dust on the ground and started rolling around. Seeing this, Tianyang also smiled bitterly. Why did it feel like this disciple of his was getting worse and worse? Could it be that the number one disciple of the Soaring Cloud sect had been fed to Luo Luo? As for Luo Luo, Tianyang was also somewhat concerned about her. Ever since they had encountered the spirit of demonic Qi and by Luo Luo had erupted with that powerful rune power, she had rarely appeared. She spent most of her time sleeping. Tianyang guessed that Bai Luo's rune power seemed to have consumed a lot of energy. However, even Tianyang couldn't figure out Bai Luo's body, let alone what the rune power consumed. Even if he wanted to replenish it, he had no idea where to start. As expected, after messing around with Ling Yuhan for a while, Bai Luo yawned and went back to sleep. Hey, we're almost there. At this moment, Ling Yuhan looked at the looming majestic city outside the window. She couldn't help but open her mouth in shock, because in her eyes, she couldn't see the end of the city. Compared to Snow Wind Royal City, Sky Blue College, Night Dome City, and Sword Star City, it was countless times bigger. At this moment, Jun Aoyang's voice came from the side. This is the city under the Sun Moon Sect, Sun Moon City. It's also the largest city in the eastern part of the central region. Jun Aoyang said proudly, our Sun Moon City has hundreds of millions of residents and a few million cultivators above the Essence Transformation realm. I'm not bragging, but even 100 Sword Star cities combined wouldn't be able to defeat our Sun Moon City. Hearing this, Tianyang nodded slightly. Indeed, this Sun Moon City covered an area of at least tens of thousands of miles. It really wasn't a problem for it to accommodate 100 million residents. Moreover, even though they were separated by the Heaven Origin Tower, Tianyang could feel the rich spiritual energy of heaven and earth around them. It was much stronger than the Mountain River sect that he had encountered before. Speaking of which, that Nie Fengyun that I met when I killed Han Tianxiong seemed to be from the Mountain River sect. Why hasn't he come to take revenge yet? Tianyang muttered to himself. Then he put down his hand. He had many enemies, and this was only because he thought of the Mountain River sect. At this moment, the Heaven Origin Tower and Soaring Shuttle had already passed through the city walls of Sun Moon City and were flying towards the inner city. Sun Moon City prohibited flying, but who didn't know that the fiery red Soaring Shuttle was the Sun Moon Sect's sect master's personal vehicle? Who dared to stop it? The entire Sun Moon City belonged to the Sun Moon Sect. Who dared to stop a sect master? Therefore, the Heaven Origin Tower that followed behind the Soaring Shuttle also flew over the city walls leisurely. Then they found an empty space in the city, and Jun Aoyang and Tianyang walked down. Jun Aoyang walked towards Tianyang and Jun Aoyang and said apologetically, I'm sorry. My father just came back and has something to do. So, I can only bring you around Sun Moon City. It was his father who had invited them, but they had to leave as soon as they arrived. Jun Tian felt a little embarrassed, so he asked Jun Aoyang to come over and apologize. However, Tianyang understood. He chuckled and nodded. It's fine. After all, he's the sect master. It's not that easy to go out. All right, aren't you going to bring us around? Tianyang smiled. Hearing this, Jun Aoyang nodded. Of course. Let's go. Then, Tianyang put away the Heaven Origin Tower and walked towards the city. Sun Moon City was divided into the outer city and the inner city. Naturally, anyone could enter the outer city. Most of the people in the outer city were mortals. After all, mortals were the most important people in this world. However, the inner city was not a place where ordinary people could enter. At the very least, one had to be at the Origin Transformation Realm and above. The millions of Origin Transformation Realm cultivators that Jun Aoyang had mentioned were also the number of people in the inner city. If the outer city was included, there might be even more. Young Master Jun, your name is really useful. With Jun Aoyang's face that everyone in the inner city knew, Tianyang and the other two naturally walked into the inner city effortlessly. Once they entered the city, Tianyang teased. Hearing this, Jun Aoyang revealed a bitter expression. Brother, don't mention it. Just because of this, my father has beaten me countless times. He said that I'm a hedonistic young master. I'm innocent. Jun Aoyang said bitterly. Hearing this, Tianyang chuckled. Naturally, he understood. However, after a month, the news will spread here. The name of the Great Void Emperor's successor will definitely be more famous than mine. Do you believe me? Jun Aoyang smiled. However, this time, he did not get a reply. Tianyang's gaze turned toward a young lady not far away. He did not bother with Jun Aoyang. Chapter 554. Tian Qianqian. Tianyang was stunned when he saw the girl. Tianyang still had some impression of her. She was one of the few cousins who had a good relationship with Tianyang before he was reborn into this body. During the Tian family competition, Tian Qianqian often came to find him. However, as a member of the Tian family, shouldn't Tian Qianqian be in the northern wilderness region? Why would she be in the central region, which was countless miles away? However, although Tianyang was confused, he didn't go forward immediately. Instead, he looked at the scene in front of him. Zhouzhen, have you had enough? Tian Qianqian was furious. She slapped away the hand of the pale youth in front of her and said angrily, I already said that I won't go to your stupid banquet. Hearing that, the pale youth's face turned cold. You're just an ordinary disciple of the Phoenix Goddess sect. How dare you be so rude to me? Even your great senior sister of the Phoenix Goddess sect has to be respectful to me, let alone a mere ordinary disciple like you. The pale youth snorted. In the next moment, he channeled his true yuan of the third firmament of the Tao Fire Realm and grabbed at Tian Qianqian's voluptuous chest. Seeing that, Tian Qianqian's face changed. She hurriedly took a few steps back. However, the pale youth sneered. Do you really think that I don't know that you're going to run? In the next moment, the space bag opened. A golden lock flew out and instantly expanded by countless times, locking Tian Qianqian in place. Seeing that, Tian Qianqian's face turned pale. She didn't expect Zhouzhen to make a move on the street. Aren't you strong? Are you arrogant? In a while, you'll become a slave that waits its tail and begs for mercy. Zhouzhen laughed. Seeing that, Tian Qianqian's face changed. She couldn't use her peak first firmament of the Tao Fire Realm cultivation. She could only scream, help. However, although they were on the street, there were still people coming and going. However, everyone acted as if they didn't hear her and continued to walk. Some of them even quickened their pace. Seeing that, Zhouzhen laughed even more. I'm a number 1 hedonistic young master in Sun Moon City. These people aren't even in the spiritual ocean realm. How dare they attack? I want to see who in Sun Moon City dares to save you. In the next moment, Zhouzhen's true energy erupted as he bent his fingers and grabbed at Tian Qianqian's chest with a perverted look on his face. At this moment, a slender right arm suddenly stretched out. His palm was like an iron clamp, firmly clamping down on Zhou Zhen's hand. In the next moment, the Zhen Yuan of a peak half-step sea of Soul Realm exploded. "I dare!" An indifferent voice resounded. In the next moment, Zhou Zhen's body was blasted away like a cannonball, and blood sprayed from her mouth. Seeing this, the surrounding crowd stopped in their tracks and looked at the young man in disbelief. This person couldn't be retarded, right? After all, Zhou Zhen was the famous young master Zhou in Sun Moon City. This young man actually dared to make a move? Then, everyone looked at the young man's face and shook their heads. In the end, he was still a newborn calf that wasn't afraid of tigers. At such a young age, he already had a peak half-step sea of soul realm cultivation. This kind of talent was frighteningly strong. Unfortunately, he met young Master Zhou. Zhou Zhen would definitely tear him into pieces. Who did this? At this moment, Zhou Zhen crawled up from the ground and wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. His eyes were about to spit fire. He had been a tyrant in Sun Moon City for so many years. Who dared to stop him? Who dared to stop him? Now, he had only snatched an ordinary disciple from a second-rate faction, and he had suffered such heavy injuries. "It's me." Tianyang smiled faintly. The one who attacked was naturally him. However, hearing this familiar voice, Tian Chanqian was stunned. She opened her eyes in disbelief and saw Tianyang's thin and tall back. This was the back she had missed countless times in the northern wilderness region. "Cousin Tianyang," Tian Chanqian said excitedly. Hearing this, Tianyang didn't turn his head. He only nodded and chuckled. At this moment, Zhou Zhen's face darkened. He walked in front of Tianyang and sneered. "So, you're this whore's cousin? I thought you were some genius disciple. So, you're just a commoner from the northern wilderness region." Zhou Zhen mocked. Hearing this, Tianyang frowned slightly. The smile on his face also became colder. "Do you know who I am? I'm the grandson of Sun Moon Sect's Grand Elder, Zhou Ming. I'm the son of Sun Moon City's Vice City Lord, Zhou Tiandao." Zhou Zhen roared. The quintessential essence of the third firmament of the Dao Fire Realm was infused into his roar. If it was someone else with a lower cultivation level, they might have had their eardrums shattered by Zhou Zhen's roar. Hearing this, Tianyang's face didn't change at all. However, Tian Chanqian's face turned pale. Sun Moon Sect's Grand Elder's grandson? Sun Moon City's Vice City Lord's son? She had heard that Zhou Zhen's background was shocking, but she didn't expect Zhou Zhen's background to be so terrifying. The Sun Moon Sect's Grand Elder was like a local tyrant in Sun Moon City. "How is it? Are you afraid? Are you scared? Kneel down for me. Lick my shoes clean, then destroy your own cultivation and break your own limbs. Then I can spare your life." Seeing Tianyang remain silent, Zhou Zhen thought that Tianyang was afraid and laughed loudly. Hearing this, the people around him sucked in a breath of cold air. Kneel down, lick his shoes, destroy his own cultivation, and break his own limbs. Zhou Zhen wanted to crush this young man into ashes in terms of spirit, cultivation, and body. It's a pity for this young man. He's probably not even 20 years old, but he's already at the peak of the half-step sea of Soul Realm. His future is limitless. It's a pity that he offended Zhou Zhen. Zhou Zhen's power and status in Sun Moon City is probably only comparable to the sect leader's son, Jun Aoyang. Everyone shook their heads and sighed in their hearts. Jun Aoyang was indeed much stronger than Zhou Zhen, but he didn't appear in Sun Moon City often. Naturally, he wouldn't stand out. This young man was definitely going to die. Just as everyone was sighing, Tianyang suddenly opened his mouth. "Nonsense, are you done?" Tianyang said indifferently. Hearing this, Zhou Zhen was stunned and didn't react for a moment. "What do you mean? If you're done, then scram." Tianyang laughed lightly and condensed true yuan in his palm. He slapped out, "Pa!" A crisp sound rang out, and Zhou Zhen's body flew out at an even faster speed than before. Blood mixed with broken teeth sprayed out of his mouth. Chapter 555. Slap. When they heard this crisp sound, everyone was stunned. She looked in shock at the young man who was standing there with a smile on his face. This guy hit Zhou Zhen? How many teeth did he knock out? Face slapping. The crowd was in an uproar. Zhou had been a tyrant in Sun Moon City for so many years, and no one had ever stopped him. Because Zhou avoided Jun Aoyang. Jun Aoyang had only seen Zhou a few times. Therefore, Zhou was the most powerful person in Sun Moon City. But now, the high and mighty young master Zhou had been beaten up. Bastard! Bastard! I'll kill you! At this moment, a furious roar came out of Zhou's mouth. In the next moment, Zhou jumped up and charged out, ignoring the rule that forbade private fights in the inner city. I'll kill you! Zhou roared. His true yuan at the third firmament of the Dao Fire Realm burst out, and a huge shadow of a tiger appeared in front of him. Upper grade Earth tier, martial skill, Flaming Tiger's Roar. Zhou roared. Seeing this, Tian Qianqian's expression changed. She hurriedly transmitted a message to Tianyang. Cousin, be careful. This move is very powerful. Even our great senior sister, who is at the half-step sea of Soul Realm, can't block it. In Tian Qianqian's opinion, although Tianyang was at the peak of the half-step sea of Soul Realm, he might not be stronger than her great senior sister. This move, Flaming Tiger's Roar, was extremely powerful. Tianyang might not be able to block it. However, after hearing Tian Qianqian's words, Tianyang only smiled faintly. It's fine. In the next moment, another slap was sent out. Bang! The huge flaming tiger was instantly slapped into its original form. Sparks flew everywhere, and flames swept out. However, none of these flames were directed at Tianyang. The upper-grade Earth-tier martial skill that young Master Zhou used was directly shattered by Tianyang's slap. How was this possible? Zhou looked at Tianyang in disbelief. At this time, Tianyang smiled faintly and walked in front of him. A shadow covered Zhou. Zhou's face paled as he took several steps back. His body was thin and weak due to his addiction to wine and women, and he nearly fell to his knees. What are you doing? My father is the Vice City Lord. Pa! Tianyang's expression was calm as he slapped Zhou. However, he broke a few of her teeth. You dare! My grandfather is the Grand Elder of the Sun Moon Sect. Pa! A few more teeth were broken. Damn it! My grandfather and father won't let you off. Slap! Pa! Pa 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 pa! Tianyang's expression was very calm from beginning to end. However, under his continuous slaps, Zhou's head was swollen like a pig's. His face was so swollen that it was impossible to tell that he was human. His teeth were all broken. If he didn't have the help of the life and death spirit molding pill, the dignified young Master Zhou would only be able to eat liquid food for the rest of his life. At this moment, Zhou was completely dumbfounded. He suddenly felt lost. Where am I? Who am I? Where am I going? Sun Moon City was the territory of the Sun Moon Sect. He was the grandson of the Grand Elder of the Sun Moon Sect. In the end, an unruly citizen from the Northern Wilderness region was beaten into a pig's head in his territory. How dare you? Zhou roared. At this moment, Jun Aoyang looked at Tianyang, whose hands were numb from all the slaps. He immediately understood what was going on and hurried over. Then, he stood beside Tianyang and looked at Zhou arrogantly. Why wouldn't I dare? Hearing this, Zhou was stunned. Then, he looked at Jun Aoyang in disbelief. He took a few steps back and raised his hand in fear. His finger trembled as he pointed at Jun Aoyang. Jun Aoyang. Hearing this, everyone was shocked. They looked at Jun Aoyang and recognized him. It really is Jun Aoyang. No wonder this young man dares to treat Zhou like that. He has Jun Aoyang's support. I heard that young Master Jun has a strong sense of justice. When young Master Jun was in Sun Moon City, Zhou always avoided him. I didn't expect Zhou to lure Jun Aoyang out this time. Pfft, serve him right. This Zhou has raped women countless times. This time, he did it in front of everyone. It's not enough even if he dies. He only got a pig's head. He got lucky. Everyone cheered. They were extremely happy. Normally, when Zhou oppressed them like this, they didn't even dare to resist. Today, someone stood out and beat Zhou up. although they thought that Tianyang might be the crown prince of some force like Jun Aoyang. As long as they could beat Zhouzhan up, why would they care about that? Seeing Jun Aoyang come out, they cheered loudly. That's right, it's me. What? Are you still not leaving after seeing me come out? Or do you want me to beat you up like brother Tianyang? Jun Aoyang sneered. Hearing that, Zhouzhan's swollen face showed a trace of fear. He ran away as fast as he could. However, before he left, Zhouzhan didn't forget to glare at Tianyang with hatred. Tianyang naturally felt Zhouzhan's gaze. However, he didn't care. To him, people like Zhouzhan were just clowns. However, when Tian Qianqian saw this scene, her mouth was wide open. Her face was full of shock. Her cousin was powerful, but he was still a member of the Tian family. The Tian family was powerful in the Arctic state. However, in the northern wilderness region, they were nothing. In the central region, they were like ants. In the end, Tianyang was chatting happily with the crown prince of the Sun-Moon sect, Jun Aoyang. After not seeing her cousin for 2 years, what happened to him? At this moment, Ling Yuhan, who had been watching from the sidelines, jumped out. Sister Qianqian, long time no see. Ling Yuhan hugged Tian Qianqian and said excitedly. Seeing that, Tian Qianqian was even more shocked. She looked at Ling Yuhan in disbelief. Yuhan? Yup. Ling Yuhan nodded. Hearing that, Tian Qianqian was even more shocked. Her mind was in a mess. She thought that she was lucky enough to be able to join the Phoenix Immortal sect and come to the central region after meeting the elder who was seriously injured and recuperating in the Tian family. In the end, Ling Yuhan, who had been jealous of her in the Tian family for a period of time, came to the central region as well. Looking at her cultivation, she was even stronger than her. What had happened in the past 2 years? At this moment, after dealing with Zhouzhan, Jun Aoyang walked to Tianyang's side and smiled apologetically. I'm so sorry to let you meet this rat. It's okay. There's no idiot among the hundreds of millions of people. I don't think I'm in heaven. Tianyang smiled. At this moment, seeing that Tianyang did not mind, Jun Aoyang heaved a sigh of relief. There's an interesting place in the Sun-Moon City called the Thousand Treasure Palace. Shall we go there? Tianyang nodded. Sure. Then Tianyang, Tian Qianqian, and Tianyang walked toward the Thousand Treasure Palace. The onlookers looked at each other. Chapter 556. Tianyang and Jun Aoyang had appeared in Sun-Moon City and slapped Zhouzhan before leaving. News of this spread like wildfire in Sun-Moon City. Apart from the fact that Tianyang and Jun Aoyang had slapped Zhouzhan, some other people had also noticed it. Apart from Jun Aoyang, there was another main character, a mysterious person whose name they didn't know. However, according to some witnesses, although Jun Aoyang wasn't very respectful to him, he was still very respectful. He had even placed that mysterious person above him. Otherwise, the son of the Sun-Moon sect's patriarch wouldn't have done such a thing. Some people were shocked, but they were also confused. However, some people's eyes were twinkling as they guessed Tianyang's identity. After all, how could such a big thing that had happened in the Great Void Mystery World be hidden? The reason why no one knew about it was because Sun-Moon City and the Great Void Mystery World were very far apart. However, Tianyang didn't know that. At that moment, Jun Aoyang had already led them to the Thousand Treasure Palace. It's really big. Tianyang raised his head and glanced at the palace. It was as big as the Sword Star City's governor's palace. The corners of his mouth twitched as he spoke. Were there treasures in such a huge palace? Even if Sky Cloud Continent had a long history and there were countless treasures, there shouldn't be so many. At that moment, Tianyang didn't have much hope that there would be good things in there. That's why I said that this place is interesting and not good things. Although there are good things in the Thousand Treasure Palace, there are many more useless things than good things. Come to the Thousand Treasure Palace and have some fun. If you aren't sure, don't do anything. This scammer has already perfected the art of counterfeiting, said Jun Aoyang. When he heard that, Tianyang nodded. Then, he followed Jun Aoyang into the Thousand Treasure Palace. The Thousand Treasure Palace was extremely huge. From the outside, it was already very shocking. When they entered, They could feel how big it was. As far as the eye could see, it was densely packed with people. There were also all kinds of stalls and shops. There were also people picking and choosing in front of the stalls. The most important thing was that every item was shining with a light of true origin. If someone with poor eyesight came in, they might really think that the Thousand Treasure Palace was full of treasures. Let's go and take a look. My face is a bit eye-catching, so I won't go with you. At that moment, Jun Ao Yang smiled lightly. Tianyang nodded slightly when he heard that. Jun Aoyang's face was known by almost everyone in Sun Moon City. If he were to pick something, and there was such a famous person next to him, that merchant would definitely inflate the price to the sky, even if it was just scrap metal. What was there to play then? However, after Tianyang nodded, Jun Ao Yang left in a flash. Tianyang looked in the direction where Jun Ao Yang disappeared and immediately saw a tall and beautiful girl. This kid was not honest. However, with one less person, and Ling Yuhan and Tian Shanqian were not outsiders, Tianyang relaxed a lot. He started to walk around the Thousand Treasure Palace. Although it looked densely packed, it wasn't that crowded. Even if there were some stalls with a lot of people, Tianyang and the other two could walk through them easily. Zhen Yuan circulated on his body. The people around him were blown away before they could even touch Tianyang. Even some Sea of Soul Realm experts didn't feel anything. Master, what are we going to do now? Ling Yuhan ran to Tianyang's side and asked. Hearing this, Tianyang smiled faintly. This Thousand Treasure Palace is probably similar to the Treasure Palace in Cloud City. It's a place where good and bad people mix together. However, the more it is like this, the more likely it is to hide treasures. Last time, the sky-treading secret art was picked up from a place like this. Hearing this, Ling Yuhan nodded. She had also seen the power of the secret art of void treading and had also cultivated it. However, because her comprehension in this aspect was not too strong, she was unable to cultivate it to the second heaven. But she had seen its might. The reason why Tianyang was able to kill Xiao Hao, Venerable Iron Bone, Bai Ying, and the others was because of the sky-treading secret art. With the sky-treading secret art's terrifying speed, Tianyang easily caught up to them and killed them. It could be said that without the sky-treading secret art, Tianyang wouldn't have let them go. But it would be a lot easier for him to kill them. Good and bad people mixed together? This Thousand Treasure Palace is very famous in Sun Moon City. Those things look pretty. How can it be a place where good and bad people mix together? Tian Shanqian said. She had always stayed in the northern wilderness region and joined the Phoenix Goddess sect to cultivate as soon as she arrived in the central region. She only came out with the sect's elders recently, so her thoughts were still relatively simple. The people here are people like you who rely on looks. Look over there, Tianyang said. Then, he pointed at a stall selling jade artifacts not far away. Selling low-grade artifacts, spiritual jades. They can change one's luck and ward off disasters. They can also absorb the spiritual chi of heaven and earth to help cultivators cultivate. These spiritual jades are different. They can ward off disasters for people. If you buy one, it's enough to protect your life. The tall and skinny stall owner shouted. Hearing this, many people gathered around with interest. At this moment, Tianyang turned around. Tian Shanqian looked at the stall owner in confusion and asked, What's wrong? Let's not talk about whether these artifacts are real or fake. Just the fact that they ward off disasters for people is a little ridiculous. Tianyang chuckled and said, Spiritual jades ward off disasters. This saying has been around since ancient times. However, if you dissect it in detail, you will find something wrong with it. Hearing this, not only Tian Shanqian, but even Ling Yuhan raised her head and looked at Tianyang in confusion. This saying has been around since ancient times. Could it be that it was fake? There are only 4 situations when a jade ward off disasters. First, the person doesn't die, but the jade breaks. This situation is naturally promoted by the group of merchants. The person lives, the jade breaks, and the jade sacrifices itself to ward off disasters for its owner. Right? Tianyang said with a smile. Ling Yuhan nodded. What's wrong with that? Don't worry. Second, the person doesn't die, and the jade doesn't break. This is even more amazing. It's all thanks to the jade. Third, the person dies and the jade breaks. Fine, the jade tries its best, but it can't ward off the disaster. There's no other way. But the jade does ward off the disaster, right? It just didn't ward off the disaster. Fourth, the person dies, but the jade doesn't break. This shows how powerful the jade is. It didn't break, even after suffering such a great disaster. If this isn't a good jade, then what is? Tianyang said with a smile. Ling Yuhan and Tian Chanqian were stunned. They revealed a thoughtful expression. No matter what, Jade City is the most powerful kind. The merchants naturally sit on the fishing platform. It seems dangerous, but in reality, they are as steady as an old dog. This is their marketing strategy. Ling Yuhan and Tian Chanqian nodded. At this moment, they suddenly felt a change in the aura behind them. When they turned around, they were startled. They saw that the surrounding people had unknowingly gathered here. This little brother, what you said makes sense. My son bought a piece of spirit jade to protect himself because of this. But after listening to your analysis, I feel like I've been cheated. Come to think of it, it's true. F*CK. I'm at the first level of C of Soul Realm, and I've been tricked by the merchants. Everyone was discussing. But after hearing this, the tall and thin man walked out with a gloomy face. Sir, what you said was only targeted at those unscrupulous merchants. My spirit jade is a genuine artifact. It's absolutely impossible for what you said to happen. The tall and thin man snorted coldly. If you still want to talk, then I can only ask you to leave. Hearing this, Tianyang's eyebrows twitched. The corners of his mouth curled up. This person was a little interesting. His background was exposed, but he still refused to admit it? Looking at the people who wanted to buy it, Tianyang's heart chilled. If these people really bought it, then the so-called protective spirit jade would probably kill a lot of people. I don't deny that some spirit jades can indeed ward off disaster. But you dare to say such words with this piece of spirit jade that can't even be considered an artifact? Tianyang chuckled and sucked over a piece of spirit jade from the tall and thin man's side. True yuan revolve around his fingertips. Seeing this, the tall and thin man's face changed greatly. What are you doing? Stop. However, Tianyang didn't care and rubbed his finger on the spirit jade. In the next moment, the spirit jade that was overflowing with light suddenly dimmed. The fluctuation of the low-grade artifact also disappeared. It looked no different from an ordinary low-grade spirit jade. Chapter 557. Shock. Even the Sea of Soul Realm experts who had only come to take a look and join the fun were shocked as they watched the scene of the jade turning into decay. Under the scan of his soul power, this was indeed a low-grade artifact. How could this youngster turn it into a piece of rotten jade with just a rub? What the hell was going on? However, when he saw this scene, the tall and thin man's face immediately darkened. However, the tall and thin man's eyes suddenly turned, and he sneered inwardly. Then, he feigned an angry expression. You, why did you destroy my artifact? It can't be that you're angry because I exposed you, right? Moreover, how can my low-grade artifact, jade, turn into a piece of rotten jade? Could it be that you stole my low-grade artifact? The tall and thin man shrieked. Hearing this, Tianyang's brows immediately creased. The nearby people were also attracted by the tall and thin man's shriek and looked over. Looking at the piece of rotten jade in Tianyang's hand that had no quality to speak of, everyone frowned. However, when he saw this scene, the tall and thin man sneered inwardly. His batch of jade was made using an ancient method. Every jade had a different method of counterfeiting. He didn't believe that Tianyang could see through all of them. Moreover, in the Thousand Treasure Palace, stealing was a serious crime. With his background, even if Tianyang didn't steal, he would still steal. When the time came, there would be no place for him in the entire Sun Moon City. When they heard the tall and thin man shriek, the surrounding people started to waver. At this moment, Tianyang's faint laughter rang out and spread throughout the entire Thousand Treasure Palace. I haven't even said anything yet, and you've already made a false accusation. Your reaction speed isn't slow either. Tianyang laughed lightly. Then he slowly walked over to the tall and thin man's stall and looked at the pieces of low-grade artifacts and mid-grade artifacts that were flowing with brilliant colors. These artifacts were of excellent quality and had extremely realistic auras. In Tianyang's eyes, they were completely the same as the piece of rotten jade in his hand. They were all fakes, bringing a bunch of fakes to the Thousand Treasure Palace and cursing so arrogantly. One had to admit that this tall and thin man was truly a genius. A stall full of fakes. Even dogs wouldn't want them if I threw them to them. Why would I need to steal them? Tianyang laughed lightly. Hearing this, the tall and thin man's heart trembled. He revealed an expression of disbelief and then instantly changed. Oof, you've been caught stealing, and yet you dare to slander me? You don't look like someone from Sun Moon City, right? Maybe you're a thief from another city who's come here. Looks like you won't give up until all hope is gone. You won't turn back until you hit a wall. These goods are all fakes, but if you ask me to identify them, I'm afraid no one will believe me. How about this? Just send a few people here. I won't do anything. I'll just let a passerby identify them. You have nothing to say now, right? Tianyang said indifferently. Hearing this, the tall and thin man laughed coldly. Passerby? A passerby could identify the authenticity of his goods? Nodding his head without any hesitation, the tall and skinny man glanced at Ling Yuhan and Tian Shanqian as a fiery light appeared in his eyes. He said sinisterly, "Isn't it a little too boring to just identify them? Why don't we make a bet?" The tall and thin man said. Tianyang raised his eyebrows. What kind of bet? As long as you can find 10 fakes among these hundreds of protective spiritual jades, I'll give you 10 Reiki and 5 spirit origin pills. But if you lose, you'll greatly affect my reputation and my business. So, I want you to compensate me with 10 billion low-grade spiritual stones. The tall and thin man laughed. Tianyang's expression turned cold when he heard this. The people around him were in an uproar. Even if these goods were real, they would only be worth tens of thousands of low-grade spiritual stones each. Let alone a day, even a year wouldn't be worth 10 billion low-grade spiritual stones. This was an exorbitant price. Of course, looking at you, I don't think you can afford 10 billion low-grade spiritual stones. Why don't you use these two beauties as compensation? The tall and thin man didn't wait for Tianyang's reply and turned to look at Ling Yuhan and Tian Shanqian. He didn't hide the greed in his eyes as he said this with a strange smile. Tianyang's eyes flashed with anger when he heard this. The true Yuan in his body instantly exploded. This fellow had finally exposed his true intentions. At this moment, Ling Yuhan stood out. "Master, let's bet." Ling Yuhan shouted with undisguised anger at her eyes. "I don't believe that this profiteer has the real deal. All right, since I've already agreed, then this bet is in effect." The tall and thin man was delighted when he heard Ling Yuhan stand out. He was afraid that Tianyang would reject the bet. Tianyang's expression turned even colder when he heard this. A murderous intent flashed in his eyes. However, this was the Thousand Treasure Palace after all. Tianyang didn't plan to attack. Instead, he randomly picked 3 people. You, and you. Come here," Tianyang said calmly. The 3 chosen Essence Transformation Realm cultivators walked forward when they heard this. They looked at each other for a while before looking at Tianyang. "You, choose the top left corner. The 4 jade stones in the square area. Gather your true yuan at the tip of your finger and point at their center." Tianyang chose a cultivator who looked younger and said this. The young cultivator didn't understand, but nodded when he heard this. "You, choose the jade stone in the middle. It looks like a middle-grade cosmic artifact. Aim at its 4 corners and pour your true yuan into it. The last one, choose the big area on the right. Don't use your true yuan. Just use your finger to flick the middle area on the bottom right of these jade stones." Tianyang said calmly. His calm and confident appearance made people think that Tianyang was confident. The tall and thin man's face turned pale as he looked at Tianyang in disbelief. Are his eyes the eyes of the devil clan? How could he be so vicious? He had found different people to make these fakes for the sake of convenience. In the end, Tianyong saw through them with just a few glances? How is this possible? It's definitely a blind cat running into a dead mouse. It's definitely a blind cat running into a dead mouse. How could a young brat know those ancient techniques? The tall and thin man thought to himself. At this time, the first person to make a move had already gotten the result. It's cracked. So only the outer layer of the skin has spirit chi gathering. The young cultivator held the 4 cracked jade stones in his hand and said in shock. Everyone's eyes widened when they saw this. Their faces were filled with disbelief. Could it really be fake? However, there were still 6 of them to go before the bed of 10. This middle-grade cosmic artifact is also fake. The 4 corners shattered when I pressed on it. This is basically a layer of powder from a middle-grade cosmic artifact. As for the second person, he also cried out in shock and disbelief. Everyone's gaze shifted over and immediately saw the middle-grade cosmic artifact with its 4 corners collapsed and powder scattered everywhere. At this time, there was no need for the third person to shout. Everyone's gaze also shifted to the area on the right that the third person was in charge of. He saw that at the bottom right corner of these protective spirit jades, there was an ink stain that had yet to dry, clearly visible, fake. 3 people, a total of 27 spirit jades, were all fake. In other words, this bet. Chapter 558. They were all fake. Everyone's jaws dropped when they saw this scene. They were speechless. Everyone in Sun Moon City knew that the 10,000 Treasure Palace had a lot of fake items. However, this tall and skinny man's stall, which had hundreds of items, were all fake. This was simply a weirdo. Moreover, it was fine if they were all fake. A big tree would have withered branches, and a lot of people would have idiots. There were so many people in Sun Moon City. It was not a big deal for a few unscrupulous merchants to appear. Most importantly, this person actually slandered Tianyong before. Instantly, everyone witnessed what it meant to be shameless. You. The tall and skinny man's face was also filled with shock. The protective spiritual jade that had already turned grayish-white was so eye-catching in his eyes. In the next moment, the tall and thin man's pale face suddenly turned red. Cutting off one's path to wealth was like killing one's parents. Even if people knew that he had bought fake items, he could use the 1,000 Treasure Palace's reputation to cover it up. Those people could only grit their teeth and swallow their anger. However, no matter what his background was, after being exposed by Tianyong today, no one would buy his items anymore. One could imagine that after today's incident, his reputation would spread throughout Sun Moon City. Of course, it would be terrible. I'll kill you, the tall and thin man roared. In the next moment, the peak of the 3rd heaven of the Tao Fire Realm erupted. A sharp knife appeared in his hand, and he stabbed it towards Tianyong. Seeing this, Tianyong's expression froze. He sneered. If a tiger did not show its might, he would be treated as a sick cat. In the next moment, Tianyong threw a punch. Boom! Before the lanky man could even get close to the heavenly sun, he was sent flying by an extremely terrifying force. The high-grade treasure knife in his hand was directly shattered, and his entire person fell dozens of meters away. This was also because Tianyong had held back. He did not want to kill anyone in the 1,000 Treasure Palace. Otherwise, the tall and thin man would have been a corpse. Bastard! The tall and thin man threw away the broken knife in his hand and forced himself to get up. Do you know who I am? I am the Palace Master of the 1,000 Treasure Palace, Palace Master Jiao's nephew, Jiao Chuan. Are you tired of living in Sun Moon City by doing this? The lanky man, Jiao Chuan, roared. Tianyong raised his eyebrows when he heard what Jiao Chuan said. The people around him were stunned when they heard what Jiao Chuan said. His eyes flashed with a hint of deep fear. The 10,000 Treasure Palace was extremely famous in Sun Moon City, and the Palace Master of the 10,000 Treasure Palace was also an extremely influential person in Sun Moon City. Who would have thought that this profiteer was actually the nephew of the 1,000 Treasure Palace's Palace Master? If that was the case, then Tianyang would most likely be doomed. Some people took a few steps back, wanting to break away from Tianyang, while some people directly slipped into the crowd, disappearing without a trace. Other than Tian Xianxian and Ling Yuhan, there was no one else around Tianyang. Ha ha! Are you afraid? Hand over the two women behind you and kneel down to beg for mercy, and I'll spare your life. Otherwise, you'll wish you were dead. Jiao Chuan laughed loudly. Tianyang's expression turned cold when he heard what Jiao Chuan said. He condensed True Yuan in his hand and was about to attack. A cold shout came from the side. Jiao Chuan, what are you doing? Jiao Chuan was stunned when he heard what Jiao Chuan said. Then, he respectfully turned his head and looked at the tall man, slowly walking over. Hello, uncle. Tianyang frowned when he heard what Jiao Chuan said. This lanky man's uncle. Did that mean that the person who came was the palace master of the Thousand Treasure Palace? It was said that the palace master of the Thousand Treasure Palace was a genuine Spirit King expert. Although he had already broken through to the Spirit King realm for 10 years, and his cultivation hadn't improved, it was still extremely difficult for Jiao Chuan to deal with him. However, it wasn't like he didn't have any confidence. As long as Tianyang hadn't activated his spiritual strength for a long time after reaching the peak of the half-step Spirit Sea realm, he could still accept it. Just as Tianyang's thoughts were flying around, the palace master had already arrived beside Jiao Chuan. Jiao Chuan, on the other hand, had snot and tears running down his face as he narrated the entire story with exaggeration. The palace master of the Thousand Treasure Palace's face darkened when he heard what Jiao Chuan said. Jiao Chuan was his nephew. No matter how unscrupulous Jiao Chuan was, he wasn't someone that could be exposed by such a person. Furthermore, aside from his identity as an unscrupulous merchant, Jiao Chuan was also in charge of helping him keep an eye on the vendors with potential. When they grew big, he would directly rob them. In this way, the palace master of the Thousand Treasure Palace would obtain a lot of cultivation resources. It could be said that Tianyang's actions had caused Jiao Chuan's reputation to spread far and wide. It had also caused his plan to exploit the vendors to fail. You actually dared to make a move in my Thousand Treasure Palace. Kid, are you ignoring the rules of my Thousand Treasure Palace? Are you ignoring the rules of Sun Moon City? Are you ignoring the rules of the Sun Moon sect? The palace master of the Thousand Treasure Palace walked in front of Tianyang with an arrogant expression. He looked at Tianyang and said coldly, the aura of a 5th-level Spirit Sea Realm Spirit King exploded out. Rolling pressure pressed down on Tianyang's body. When the surrounding people felt this pressure, their expressions changed greatly and they retreated. This was a Spirit King expert, an expert that stood at the top of the pyramid in the eastern part of the central region. For a moment, everyone looked at Tianyang with eyes full of pity. Being targeted by such an expert, even if you acted righteously, you could only be beaten up or even killed. After all, this was a cruel world of martial arts where the strong preyed on the weak. There was no reason at all. Hearing this, Tianyang's brows twitched. He sneered inwardly and said without any trace of politeness, "What? Ignoring the Sun Moon sect? That's a really big accusation. Since when can you, the palace master of the Thousand Treasure Palace, represent the Sun Moon sect? I heard that you're an elder." "What? You, an elder, want to replace Spirit King Glorious Sun?" Tianyang did not hold back and retorted sarcastically. Hearing this, everyone's expression changed again. The palace master of the Thousand Treasure Palace's face turned green and white. He originally wanted to use the young man's character to make him admit to this hat. When the time came, it would be much easier to deal with him. However, he did not expect that Tianyang would not fall for this trick at all. Instead, he attacked him. This time, the palace master of the Thousand Treasure Palace was in a dilemma. You have a glib tongue, and you're trying to mislead people. I, Jiao, am an upright person. How can I be disloyal? Get over here. The palace master of the Thousand Treasure Palace shouted angrily. In the next moment, the Spirit King realm's True Yuan exploded and turned into an extremely tyrannical suction force, directly covering Tianyang. Seeing this, Tianyang's brows twitched. His expression did not change as he circulated the divine wilderness sky spirit art. 108 true dragon patterns shone, directly resisting the suction force. At this moment, a furious roar came from behind. Jiao Zhoming, what are you doing? Chapter 559. Jiao Zhoming, what are you doing? The Thousand Treasure Palace Master could not help but tremble when he heard the angry roar. Jiao Zhoming was the full name of the Thousand Treasure Palace Master. However, due to his high status, not many people knew about it. As for the source of this roar, he was also clear about it. It was someone he could not afford to offend. Young Master Jun, what's wrong? The Thousand Treasure Palace Master turned his head stiffly and looked at Jun Aoyang, who had left the maidservant behind and was walking towards him angrily. Jun Aoyang was even angrier when he heard this. It was already bad enough that he met the tyrannical Zhou Zhun. Now, he was here to have some fun at the Thousand Treasure Palace. How could he meet someone who bullied others? As the host, he had lost all his face because of you. Tell me first, what did you do? Jun Aoyang was almost shouting. His true origin energy was condensed and almost shattered everyone's eardrums. Luckily, everyone here was above the essence transformation stage, so they were safe. However, some of the weaker people were also shaken to the point that their eardrums hurt and their minds became dizzy. The Thousand Treasure Palace Master was stunned and confused. I only taught a lesson to a little bastard who doesn't know his place. I'll King kill you. Before he could finish his sentence, Jun Aoyang could not take it anymore. A ball of fire burned and charged towards the Thousand Treasure Palace Master. Seeing this, the Thousand Treasure Palace Master's face changed. He did not know that his words had angered this little ancestor. He quickly retreated. This was the son of Spirit King Glorious Sun, the grandson of the Sun Moon Sect's elder ancestor. If he touched a hair on this kid, he would not be able to bear the consequences. However, the Thousand Treasure Palace Master was also confused. He did not know why Jun Aoyang did this. Previously, he had only taught a young man a lesson. Wait, the Thousand Treasure Palace Master's pupil shrank. He looked at the calm Tianyang in disbelief. It was because of this young man? Wait, Jun Xiao, I don't know either. The Palace Master of Thousand Treasure Palace cried bitterly in his heart. Hearing this, Jun Aoyang restrained himself a little, but his expression was still extremely cold. You don't know? What do you not know? I only know that my nephew was beaten up by this kid. That's why I took action. I don't know the details. The leader of the 10,000 Treasure Palace said. Jun Aoyang's expression changed slightly. He had just been drinking tea with the leader of the 10,000 Treasure Palace, and this conflict seemed to have happened a long time ago. It seemed that the leader of the 10,000 Treasure Palace had nothing to do with it. However, this 10,000 Treasure Palace Master dared to attack Tianyang, so he was definitely not a good person. All right, you. Tell me what's going on. Jun Aoyang pointed at Jiao Chuan and said indifferently, It's best if you tell the truth. Otherwise, you probably don't want to know the strength of the top 1,000 on the spirit ranking. Hearing this, Jiao Chuan screamed in agony. His face turned white, but under the pressure of Jun Aoyang, he had to spit out everything. The more Jun Aoyang listened, the uglier his face became. Well done, Jun Aoyang said angrily, and smashed Jiao Chuan's stall with a slap. There are many fakes in the 10,000 Treasure Palace, but is that a reason? Selling fake goods has always been a shady business. But you guys are doing it openly? Do you guys not have any respect for the Sun Moon Sect? Selling fakes openly, and after being exposed, you still bully others. Do you think that the Sun Moon City belongs to your family? Jun Aoyang suddenly raised his voice and said. Hearing this, the leader of the 10,000 Treasure Palace had a bitter expression. He had said this to Tianyang before, but Tianyang had refuted him. Now, it was almost the same, but he had no way to refute it. Jun Aoyang was the son of the Sun Moon Sect's leader and the future leader of the Sun Moon Sect. He was fully qualified to represent the Sun Moon Sect. Moreover, don't think that I'm angry just because of this. Do you know who Tianyang is? Jun Aoyang laughed coldly and pulled Tianyang over. Tianyang was still watching the show, but after being pulled by Jun Aoyang, he immediately walked over. Hearing this, Jiao Chuan and the leader of the 10,000 Treasure Palace were both stunned. Who else could this young man be? At this moment, Zhu Naoyang's next words made their faces turn pale. A third-level C of Soul Realm cultivator from the Gold Star City, who was in the top 1,000 of the spirit ranking, was killed by him in one move. An elder of the Sky Demon cult, who was at the peak of the 4th level, was also killed by him. Lunar Mountains by Zhuan's young master, Bai Ying, and Venerable Iron Bone both died by his sword. The reason he came to our Sun Moon City was because my father, Spirit King Glorious Sun, and the sect leader of the Sun Moon sect personally invited him. And you guys actually bullied him? Jun Aoyang roared. Hearing this, the leader of the 10,000 Treasure Palace and Jiao Chuan's faces turned pale. It was hard to imagine that Tianyang was actually this strong. When the surrounding onlookers heard this, they all sucked in a breath of cold air and were extremely shocked. This young man was only 17 or 18 years old, but he had already accomplished such a glorious feat. In comparison, the rest of them were like dogs who had lived their lives in vain. Hearing this, Tian Qianqian also revealed a shocked expression. Her cousin had actually accomplished such a feat. No wonder he was so calm, even when the leader of the 10,000 Treasure Palace, who was at the Spirit King realm, attacked. It turned out that he had already killed Venerable Iron Bone, who was at the peak of the 8th level C of Soul Realm. A mere Spirit King was naturally nothing in his eyes. At this moment, Jiao Chuan's face had already turned pale from fright, and his limbs were twitching nonstop. What about me? At this moment, the leader of the 10,000 Treasure Palace suddenly came to his senses and directly stood up to slap Jiao Chuan's face. You're always me, you mother ***. Get lost. Get lost immediately. Get out of Sun Moon City. Get out of the Central Region. I don't want to see you in the Central Region ever again. The leader of the 10,000 Treasure Palace roared. Hearing this, Jiao Chuan suddenly came to his senses and hurriedly crawled up. Yes. Tianyang, on the other hand, had been coldly watching all this and sneered in his heart. He had long seen through this. This leader of the 10,000 Treasure Palace was clearly pretending to be innocent and wanted to push all the blame onto him. At that time, he, the leader of the 10,000 Treasure Palace, would go for being a bully to being persecuted by an expert. And he, Tianyang, would become a villain through and through. It had to be said that he was a Spirit King expert, after all. His shrewdness was simply frightening. However, in everyone's eyes, the dignified Spirit King expert, the leader of the 10,000 Treasure Palace, Jiao Zhoming, had bowed his head in front of Tianyang. The leader of the 10,000 Treasure Palace had bowed his head. At this moment, just as Zhu Naoyang was about to speak, Tianyang looked at Jiao Chuan's departing figure and stretched out his hand. True Yuan surged and directly imprisoned Jiao Chuan on the spot. The corner of his mouth hooked up into a smile. Didn't you want to splash dirty water on me? Then, I'll be the villain to the end. Chapter 560. Did I say that you can leave? Tianyang's faint voice reverberated throughout the area. When he heard this, the palace master of the 1,000 treasure halls' expression stiffened. Jiao Chuan's figure also froze on the spot. Seeing this, Zhu Naoyang was stunned. Brother Tianyang, don't say anything. Tianyang waved his hand and looked at the 1,000 Treasure Palace leader indifferently. Why? Do you like representatives? You were representing the Sun Moon sect before, and now you're representing me? Tianyang said with a smile. Hearing this, the palace master of myriad treasure palaces' expression instantly turned extremely ugly. Previously, it was because of this that he attacked without caring about his reputation. It damaged his prestige. Now, Tianyang brought it up again. He was obviously rubbing salt on his wound. Tianyang, although you're strong, you're only at the peak of the half-sea of Soul Realm. If you want to explode with that level of strength, you must have other means. The 1,000 Treasure Palace leader said coldly. Previously, he was so polite because of Zhu Naoyang. However, Tianyang's current actions made him unable to be polite anymore. There was a threatening tone in his words. Let me give you a piece of advice. Forgive people whenever possible. It's better to have one more friend than one more enemy. The Thousand Treasure Palace leader said coldly. Hearing this, Tianyang raised his eyebrows and laughed lightly. One more friend? You think you're worthy? Hearing this, the Thousand Treasure Palace leader was stunned. Zhu Naoyang was dumbfounded. Countless people were shocked. Countless pairs of shocked eyes looked at Tianyang. Did this guy know who was standing in front of him? That was the Thousand Treasure Palace leader, the Sun Moon Sect's elder, the Spirit King elite, Jiao Zhoming. Yet you said he was not worthy? I'm not worthy. Hearing this, the Thousand Treasure Palace leader's face turned completely stiff. It was so gloomy that it seemed like water could drip from it. You're so young, but you're so arrogant. Hearing this, Tianyang smiled faintly. Not to mention you. Even if Spirit King Gloria's son came personally, it's impossible for me to let this person go. A faint murderous intent flashed in Tianyang's eyes. Previously, Jiao Chuan forced the bet and later went back on it in front of everyone. He even tried to touch Ling Yuhan and Tian Qianqian. This made Tianyang want to kill him. Now that the Hall Master of the Thousand Treasure Hall was trying to trick him, Tianyang naturally could not tolerate it any longer. Why should a great emperor lower his head? However, upon hearing this, the leader of the Thousand Treasure Palace's face darkened again. Even if Spirit King Gloria's son was here, it was impossible? That was to say, his nephew's his. He Tianis SSS that's not Beez's woods, it's he's. Therefore, the 10,000 Treasure Palace master suppressed his anger and said coldly, Then how do you want to settle this? The Thousand Treasure Palace leader asked. Hearing this, Tianyang chuckled and looked at Jiao Chuan. It's simple. Previously, I made a bet with this person. The bet is 10 billion low-grade spiritual stones. Now, this guy went back on his word and tried to kill me. I'm magnanimous, so I can't ask for too much. How about this? I'll double it by 10 times. That's 100 billion low-grade spiritual stones. 100 billion low-grade spiritual stones is equivalent to 10 million high-grade spiritual stones. I'll let this person go as long as you can take it out. Tianyang chuckled. Hearing this, the Thousand Treasure Palace leader's face turned completely gloomy. 10 million high-grade spiritual stones. Jiao Chuan worked for him and exploited so many vendors. The total amount of cultivation resources he got was less than 10 million high-grade spiritual stones. In the end, the moment this heavenly son opened his mouth, he asked for so much. He was sure that the Thousand Treasure Palace leader wouldn't dare to make a move. At this moment, the Thousand Treasure Palace leader wanted to kill Tianyang. However, the Thousand Treasure Palace leader had forgotten that he was the one who bullied Tianyang in the beginning. He was also the one who tried to harm Tianyang later on. 10 million upper-grade spiritual stones? That's too much. Even 10 billion lower-grade spiritual stones is just a joke for my nephew. How can you take his words seriously? The Thousand Treasure Palace leader sneered. In my opinion, 100,000 high-grade spiritual stones should be enough to settle this matter. Hearing this, Jun Aoyang heaved a sigh of relief. After all, the Thousand Treasure Palace leader was a spiritual king. 100,000 high-grade spiritual stones was not a lot, but it wasn't a small amount either. Using it to solve this problem was an excellent choice. However, how could Tianyang agree to it? If he agreed, how could he kill Jiao Chuan? Tianyang didn't think that the Thousand Treasure Palace leader would let him plant a bomb in Jiao Chuan's body under such circumstances. He might even scan Jiao Chuan as soon as he went out. As for Jiao Chuan, Tianyang had to kill him. I'm sorry, but without 10 million high-grade spiritual stones, no deal. Tianyang said indifferently. Hearing this, the palace master of the Myriad Treasure Palace's face turned extremely gloomy. Tianyang, you've gone too far. 10 million high-grade spiritual stones, not 10 million low-grade spiritual stones. 10 million high-grade spiritual stones is enough to buy a small city. According to me, 100,000 high-grade spiritual stones will settle this matter. The Thousand Treasure Palace leader said angrily. Hearing this, Tianyang chuckled. Less than 10 million high-grade spiritual stones, no deal. In the next moment, Tianyang made his move. His half-step sea of soul realm true yuan condensed. Tianyang, how dare you? Seeing this, the 1,000 Treasure Palace leader's eyes widened. With a roar, his fifth-level sea of soul realm true yuan also burst out, releasing the shackles on Jiao Chuan's body. Then he counterattacked. However, Tianyang raised his hand, and 108 true dragon patterns burst out, blocking the punch. In the next moment, the heavenly flame of annihilation burned fiercely. Endless dragon power gathered. In the next moment, Tianyang blasted out a punch. Dragon King's divine fist, 10,000 dragons slaughtering gods. Tianyang roared. In the next moment, his sky origin true yuan surged. Tens of thousands of dragons roared and directly shattered the 1,000 Treasure Palace leader's defense. Jiao Chuan's face changed greatly. The true yuan in his body surged out wildly. Unfortunately, in front of Tianyang, he was just an ant, destroyed in one blow. Tianyang clenched his fist. In the next moment, the air around Jiao Chuan suddenly pressed down on Jiao Chuan. In the next moment, boom! A terrifying loud sound was heard. Jiao Chuan's expression was completely frozen in that moment of incomparable fear. In the next moment, another loud sound was heard. Bang! Jiao Chuan's entire body exploded into a cloud of blood. He died an unnatural death. Seeing this, the 1,000 Treasure Palace leader's face turned extremely ugly. Oof! The 1,000 Treasure Palace leader snorted coldly. Then, he turned around and left in a huff. Looking at his gloomy face, it was obvious that the 1,000 Treasure Palace leader had already held a grudge against Tianyang. However, Tianyang did not care at all. With a smile on his face, he pulled Ling Yuhan's small hand and turned around to leave. Seeing this, Tian Qianqian hurriedly followed. When Jun Aoyang saw this, he glanced at the blood on the ground, then looked at Tianyang and the 1,000 Treasure Palace leader. After that, he hurriedly chased after Tianyang. The group of people left behind looked at each other in disbelief. Chapter 561. The 1,000 Treasure Palace leader walked away. Looking at his back, Jun Aoyang frowned and said to Tianyang, "Brother Tianyang, although this person offended you, you don't have to kill him in front of everyone. If you do that, you won't be giving the 1,000 Treasure Palace leader a way out in front of everyone. If that happens, you'll have a hard time in the Sun Moon sect," Jun Aoyang said. Hearing that, Tianyang smiled faintly. "I'm not a member of the Sun Moon sect. So what if I do in the Sun Moon sect? Moreover, this Jiao Chuan sold so many spiritual jades and killed so many people. He should have died a long time ago. What's wrong with me killing him?" Tianyang said. Hearing that, Jun Aoyang opened his mouth and hesitated. In the end, he only said one sentence. "But you shouldn't have killed him in front of the 1,000 Treasure Palace leader. I did kill him in front of him. So what?" Tianyang laughed coldly. Did he really think that I couldn't tell what he was doing? He bullied others and became the victim. I was just trying to help others, but I'm being slandered. If that's the case, why don't I just be a spoiled brat and annoy that guy? Then, Tianyang turned around and walked away. At this time, Jun Aoyang was stunned by Tianyang's words. Then, he suddenly reacted. He wasn't stupid. He just didn't notice it before. Now that he thought about it, he found many suspicious points. The confusion in his heart was also explained. Anyone would be furious after being plotted against by the 1,000 Treasure Palace leader. It wasn't strange for Tianyang to do that. The scariest thing was Tianyang killing Jiao Chuan seemed to be following the 1,000 Treasure Palace leader's orders. However, in reality, he was going against the 1,000 Treasure Palace leader's authority to kill the evil merchant. If this matter spread out, Tianyang would be the one to benefit. On the other hand, the 1,000 Treasure Palace leader would become a person who bullied others and allowed his subordinates to make mistakes. Not only did he not get to eat the mutton, but he also got himself into trouble. Jun Aoyang's heart trembled. Tianyang's move was too precise. He had directly countered the 10,000 Treasure Palace master. Furthermore, it all happened within a matter of minutes. At this time, Tianyang and the other two had already walked far away. Seeing this, Jun Aoyang hurriedly followed. 2 hours later, Tianyang and his entourage walked out of the 10,000 treasure palace dispiritedly. This 10,000 treasure palace is truly filled with treasures. It's a pity that every single one of them is truly good. Tianyang shook his head in pity. In the past 2 hours, he had walked around the entire palace of 1,000 treasures, but he didn't find anything good. The only one that could be considered good was a broken version of a low-grade spiritual artifact. Tianyang had plenty of such items in his Tianyuan pagoda. Even though it was a waste, Tianyang couldn't be bothered to pick it up. Most of them were treasured artifacts. To Tianyang, they weren't attractive at all. This 10,000 treasure palace is famous far and wide. Most of the people who set up stalls here have already eaten everything they have. Naturally, they wouldn't leave behind anything good. Jun Aoyang smiled awkwardly. That's why I only said that this place was interesting. I didn't say that there were many good things here. However, now that we're done with the 10,000 treasure palace, let's go to the Sun Moon sect, said Jun Aoyang. Jun Aoyang said. Tianyang nodded his head slightly. There were only a few things in Sun Moon City that were attractive to him. He had already finished browsing through most of them. Going directly to the Sun Moon sect was what he wanted. When Jun Aoyang saw Tianyang nod his head, he heaved a sigh of relief. There were too many people in the Sun Moon City, and there were too many idiots. If another idiot came to provoke Tianyang, he, the young master of the Sun Moon sect, would lose all his face. Tian Qianqian, who was beside him, suddenly remembered something. She said to Tianyang in a panic, "I'm sorry, cousin. My Phoenix Goddess sect has a fixed residence in the Sun Moon City. I can't go with you to the Sun Moon sect." Tian Qianqian was a little anxious. It was already evening. If she didn't go back now, she would be late. Moreover, Zhou Zhun was dragged over by a senior sister of the Phoenix Goddess sect. If she was late again, that senior sister might take advantage of her and teach her a lesson. Seeing this, Tianyang nodded slightly. Then, he looked at Jun Aoyang. Jun Aoyang immediately understood. He smiled at Tian Qianqian and said, "If anyone from the Phoenix Goddess sect bullies you, just mention my name. In Sun Moon City, I, Jun Aoyang, still have some power and influence." Hearing this, Tian Qianqian was startled. Then, she looked at Tianyang emotionally and left in a hurry. She knew that she didn't have much of a relationship with Jun Aoyang. Even in the 10,000 treasure palace, they didn't speak a word. Yet, Jun Aoyang said such words. It was definitely Tianyang's intention. Therefore, in Tian Qianqian's heart, Tianyang's figure became taller again. Right, that Phoenix Goddess sect, what kind of sect is it? Tianyang and Jun Aoyang walked on the road and suddenly asked. Hearing this, Jun Aoyang raised his brows. It's just a second-rate sect that only accepts female disciples. That's why it's a little famous. It's said that it's related to the martial Tao Holy Land, Clear Mist Pavilion. But now, there's only a peak third-level sea of Soul Realm guy barely holding on. In terms of overall strength, it's about the same as your Star Sword sect. Jun Aoyang said. Hearing this, Tianyang nodded. Since it's just a small sect, there's no need to be concerned. If Tian Qianqian was wronged in there, it wouldn't be difficult to kill her. Then let's go, Tianyang said. Hearing this, Jun Aoyang nodded and led the way. Sun Moon Sect. It was located in the center of Sun Moon City, and it was the territory of the Sun Moon Sect. Among them, there were countless mountains, rivers, and a vast and terrifying spirit-gathering formation. Compared to the Great Void Secret Realm, the heaven and earth spirit chi here was much denser. It could be said to be 100 times denser than the northern wilderness region. On the main peak of the Sun Moon Sect, the Sun Moon Peak, Jun Tian's expression was ugly as he looked at the person in front of him. First Elder, what do you mean by this? Jun Tian said coldly. Hearing this, the elder in front of Jun Tian glanced at him and smiled faintly. Of course, it's nothing. It's just that the Martial Arts Conference of the East of the Central Region has very high requirements. Although your son, Jun Aoyang, has the combat power of the spiritual role, he might not be the top of the younger generation of the Sun Moon Sect. The Sun Moon Sect has always been a place where the strong go up and the weak go down. If my son defeats your son, for the glory of the Sun Moon Sect, let him go. The elder smiled faintly. Hearing this, Jun Tian's expression turned cold. This first elder made it sound nice, but in reality, he was just trying to take over the Sun-Moon sect. Now, his father, the Sun-Moon sect's old ancestor, was getting older and older, but he had been stuck at the peak of the half-step Ascension realm, unable to break through to the Ascension realm. In addition, his serious injuries had relapsed, and he was nearing the end of his life. Therefore, this group of people had all jumped out. No, the matter of changing the leader has to be discussed by the Elders Guild. How can the two of us make a decision so easily? Jun Tian sneered. Hearing this, the first elder smiled faintly and waved his hand. Creak. The doors opened, and countless elders filed in, arriving at the conference hall. It's natural for the Elders Guild to discuss it. Why don't we try it now? The first elder of the Sun-Moon sect smiled. Seeing this, Jun Tian's expression changed slightly. Chapter 562. When Tianyang and the other two arrived at the Sun-Moon sect, they realized that there was something wrong with the atmosphere. As for the surrounding disciples, it was still all right for the ordinary disciples. When they saw them, they just retreated. However, the inner sect disciples looked at Jun Aoyang with mocking gazes. Jun Aoyang suddenly had a bad premonition. What's going on? Ling Yuhan said. Even she had noticed that something was off. Tianyang, on the other hand, frowned slightly as he looked in a certain direction. He saw the Thousand Treasure Palace Master, Jiao Zhoming, looking at Tianyang and the other two with a mocking expression. Before Tianyang could say anything, a middle-aged man who looked like a butler hurried over and whispered something to Jun Aoyang. Jun Aoyang's face changed when he heard that. What? How dare they? Jun Aoyang roared. The butler shuddered when he heard that, but he could only nod bitterly. Let's go back. The sect leader is waiting for us, the butler said. Jun Aoyang nodded when he heard that. Then, he apologized to Tianyang and left with the butler. Heavenly Sun and Heavenly Sun were left standing where they were, deep in thought. It seems like we came at the wrong time. Tianyang muttered to himself. Hearing that, Ling Yuhan nodded. At that moment, the palace master of the Thousand Treasure Palace, who had been standing at the side, immediately walked up. Ha ha ha! Do you think Jun Aoyang is powerful? He can't even protect himself now. You'll be dead when the competition ends. The palace master of Thousand Treasure Palace laughed out loud. Then, without waiting for Tianyang and Tianyang to reply, he left with a smug look on his face. Seeing this, Tianyang's expression did not change. However, his heart sank slightly. What exactly happened to the Sun-Moon sect? Jun Tian was not dead yet, but the Thousand Treasure Palace Master did not give Jun Aoyang any face. Before Tianyang could think for long, an angry roar came from behind him. It's you, Senior Brother Yang. This is the person, Zhou Zhun shouted angrily. Hearing that, Tianyang's expression changed slightly. He turned his head around and saw that the swelling on Zhou Zhun's face had yet to subside. He still had the appearance of a pig. This appearance, this style, if it wasn't young Master Zhou Zhun, who had lost countless teeth and was beaten into a pig's head in the afternoon, who else could it be? Heh, it seems like you don't have a good memory. Tianyang smiled faintly. Previously, because they were in Sun-Moon City, Tianyang couldn't be too ruthless. Now that they were in the Sun-Moon sect, he didn't have so many scruples. Don't you remember? Hearing this, Zhou Zhun was stunned. Then, he remembered the scene where he was beaten into a pig's head without being able to fight back. Fear rose in his heart, and he took a few steps back. After retreating, Zhou Zhun suddenly realized that he wasn't in Sun-Moon City anymore. Now that Tianyang's backer, Jun Aoyang, was done for, why should he be afraid of him? Thinking of this, Zhou Zhun's face turned red. It was because he was played by Tianyang. How dare he be so arrogant in the Sun-Moon sect? Senior Brother Yang, help me teach him a lesson. Zhou Zhun shouted angrily. Hearing this, Senior Brother Yang beside him nodded. He walked in front of Tianyang with an arrogant expression. Using the protruding terrain under his feet, he looked down at Tianyang from above. You are the person who dared to attack young Master Zhou in his Sun-Moon City, Senior Brother Yang said as he looked at Tianyang with disdain. His spiritual power was extraordinary. Ordinary techniques, to hide one's aura were useless in front of him. However, he couldn't see through Tianyang's cultivation. There were two reasons for this situation. First, Tianyang's spiritual power was terrifyingly strong. It was enough to crush him. Therefore, he couldn't see through Tianyang's strength. Second, Tianyang's strength was too weak. His aura was too weak, so he couldn't see through it. Senior brother Yang didn't believe that Tianyang would be so strong. Therefore, he thought of Tianyang as the second reason. So what if I am? So what if I'm not? Tianyang laughed lightly. His expression was incomparably calm. It was as if the person in front of him wasn't the third disciple of the Sun Moon sect's famous elder Zhou, Yang Wei, but a pig or a dog. Seeing Tianyang's expression, Yang Wei's expression changed instantly. Endless anger spread out from Yang Wei's body and pressed down on Tianyang's body. The aura of a peak second-level sea of Soul Realm was fully displayed. Ha ha! Senior brother Yang Wei is in the top 700 of the spirit ranking. Who knows how many third-level sea of Soul Realm cultivators have died in his hands. This guy actually dares to be so arrogant. He's simply courting death. Zhou Jun laughed sinisterly. Hearing this, Yang Wei's mind was immediately shaken, and he laughed loudly. As for Tianyang, his brows raised. The spirit ranking was a list that measured a sea of Soul Realm cultivator. He had heard of this before. However, even Elder Ku Shan, who was at the third level of the spirit ranking, was only in the top 700. This Yang Wei, who was only at the peak of the second level of the spirit ranking, actually had such a ranking. It seemed that this Yang Wei's talent was truly extraordinary. Unfortunately, he had met him. Die for me. Earth tier, upper grade, martial skill, Sun Moon Break. Yang Wei roared. The true essence of a peak second-level sea of Soul Realm surged out, condensing into the shape of a sun and a moon, and ruthlessly attacked Tianyang. Seeing this, Tianyang's expression didn't change. He smiled indifferently and didn't even draw his sword. He only punched out. 108 drops of sky origin true essence shone brightly, and 108 true dragon patterns instantly erupted. Endless dragon force converged. Boom! It wasn't the Dragon King's divine fist, but it wasn't the slightest bit inferior to it. Yang Wei's Sun Moon Break was instantly shattered, while Tianyang's body remained unmoved. Immediately after, the fist energy exploded. Yang Wei spat out blood from his mouth and flew out like a cannonball, ruthlessly smashing into a mountain peak. Who knew how many ribs in his body were broken? And his dantian was directly shattered by Tianyang's punch. The true essence of a peak second-level sea of Soul Realm continuously dispersed and flowed, merging into the heaven and earth, becoming a part of the heaven and earth spirit chi. As for Yang Wei himself, after violently vomiting blood, he fainted. The dignified third disciple of the Sun Moon sect's great elder, an expert in the top 700 of the spirit ranking, was crippled by a single punch just like that. Zhou Jun's face was also deathly pale. He completely couldn't imagine how Tianyang, a peak half-step sea of Soul Realm, could possess such powerful strength. However, there was no time for him to think about it now. This is the Sun Moon sect. I can't kill you here. Tianyang's expression was indifferent as he walked in front of Zhou Jun, his face calm. However, it's obviously impossible for me not to teach you a lesson. Subsequently, Tianyang stretched out his finger and lightly tapped a few times. A few rays of finger light flew out. Left arm, left leg, right leg, including dantian. Chapter 563. Killing Yang Wei and crippling Zhou Jun. Countless Sun Moon sect disciples watched this scene in shock. The commotion of Yang Wei being sent flying by Tianyang had already attracted this group of people, and they just happened to see Tianyang breaking Zhou Jun's limbs and crippling his dantian. Countless people were dumbfounded. One had to know that these two people were the great elder's favorite. One was his third disciple, and the other was his son. Now, they were both crippled by Tianyang. If the great elder knew about this, he would definitely go crazy. It's over, it's over. Both of them are crippled. This guy is definitely finished. Even if the sect leader goes to protect him, it's useless. The sect leader can't even take care of himself now. How can he protect him? It's a pity to be able to kill a peak half-step C of Soul Realm expert, who's more than 700 on the spirit ranking. With a single punch, he's definitely an extraordinary genius. It's a pity that he fell in our Sun-Moon sect. Everyone sighed. Hearing this, Tianyang's expression didn't change, and he chuckled. Great Elder? According to Jun Aoyang, the Sun-Moon sect's Great Elder was only around the 7th level of the Sea of Soul Realm in terms of strength. Even Jun Tian was far from that. Compared to Venerable Ironbone, he was even more trash. Although Tianyang wouldn't easily use Shun Tian Wuzuan's power under normal circumstances, if he was forced into a corner, Tianyang could use the sky-devouring secret technique and unseal it. He could even kill a Ascension Realm expert once. Shun Tian Wuzuan's power had a limit, but his soul power didn't. Of course, it hadn't reached that stage yet. Yuhan, have you found out where Jun Aoyang and the rest went? At this moment, Tianyang turned his head and asked Ling Yuhan. Hearing this, Ling Yuhan nodded. Previously, when he was dealing with Yang Wei, Tianyang didn't want to waste time, so he asked Ling Yuhan to investigate. Now that the investigation was completed, it was just in time for Tianyang to cripple Zhou Zhun. Ling Yuhan calmly stepped over Zhou Zhun's body, causing Zhou Zhun to scream in pain. Unfortunately, Ling Yuhan didn't even blink. I've heard about it. He's currently in the Sun-Moon sect's battle arena. It's said that the elders of the Sun-Moon sect have reached some kind of agreement, and they want Jun Aoyang to fight the other one. If he loses, Jun Tian's position might be lost, Ling Yuhan solemnly said. Hearing this, Tianyang's expression changed. Jun Tian's position was no longer guaranteed. The Sun-Moon sect hadn't even descended into chaos yet, and things had already reached such a stage. Plus, Jun Aoyang had just reached the 1st level of Sea of Souls realm, and it had only been a couple of months. His power might not even be as powerful as Yang Wei, who Yi Chun had taken care of before. If Jun Aoyang were to fight, it would be disastrous. Then let's make a trip. There's nothing much to do here. Tianyang frowned slightly. Compared to the others, Tianyang was naturally more biased towards Jun Aoyang. Hearing this, Ling Yuhan didn't object. She nodded and soared into the sky, heading towards the Sun-Moon sect's battle arena. Sun-Moon sect's battle arena. Compared to Sky Blue College's battle arena, this place was much more spacious. The area it occupied was at least 100,000 square meters. The spectator seats also occupied 120,000 square meters of space, enough to accommodate several tens of thousands of people. On the spectator seats on both sides of the battle arena, Jun Aoyang sat beside Jun Tian, and a group of elders sat beside the head elder. There was also a seemingly unruly youth who looked at the person before him with contempt. Jun Aoyang is only at the peak of the 1st level of Sea of Souls realm. His true battle power is at most in the top 1,000 of his spirit ranking. You want me to fight? Even Yang Wei can easily kill this person. The youth sneered. Hearing this, the head elder nodded. That's natural. Jun Aoyang is only in his 20s, while you're already in your 30s. You're naturally much stronger than him. However, you can't be too careless. If you fail miserably, that wouldn't be good. After all, as the son of the sect master, it's impossible for Jun Aoyang to not have some tricks up his sleeve. The head elder smiled. Hearing this, the youth nodded, but he still had a non-committal look on his face. After all, he was the head elder's eldest disciple, as well as the head elder's eldest son. He was ranked 325th on the spirit ranking, peak of the 3rd level of Sea of Souls realm, Zhou Xingtian. As for Jun Aoyang, he was younger than Jun Aoyang by more than 4 years. In terms of cultivation base, there was a difference of 3 levels. This battle could be said to be extremely disparity. The further one went on the spirit ranking, the greater the disparity. The disparity between the 1st and 2nd was incomparably huge. Similarly, the disparity between the 300th and the 1000th was also incomparably huge. It could be said that the 300th person could instantly kill 10 people in the 1000th place with a raise of his hand without any problem. This was also the reason why Zhou Xingtian was so contemptuous. In his opinion, Zhu Naoyang was a weakling that could be crushed at will. There was no challenge at all. On the other side, Jun Tian's expression was extremely ugly. I didn't expect that after not managing the affairs of the sect for so many years, Zhou Shandao would actually manage such a large force. Jun Tian roared as he looked at the various sect elders. His heart was extremely pained. Among these people, a considerable portion of them were personally promoted by him. Back then, they were loyal and devoted to him. However, today, because of some illusory benefits promised by Zhou Shandao, they resolutely abandoned him, the sect master, and turned to support Zhou Shandao. If not for this, the Elders Guild would definitely not have agreed to this battle. One had to know that the Martial Arts Conference of the Eastern Central Region was a grand event. Almost all the large and small forces in the Eastern Central Region had to participate. After all, this martial arts conference was a reshuffle of the forces in the Eastern Central Region. A third-rate force could jump to become a second-rate force, and a first-rate force could also fall to become a third-rate force. All of this was because of the Martial Arts Conference. Therefore, the position of the leader of the Martial Arts Conference was so important. It could be said that once one became the leader of a force in the Martial Arts Conference, then the future master of that force would more or less be him. Sect Master Jun, let's not delay any longer. If we delay any longer, it'll be daytime. Opposite Jun Tian, the great elder smiled faintly. Hearing this, Jun Tian's face also darkened. You have to know that this is the decision of the Elders Guild. Unless our young Master Jun doesn't want to participate in this martial arts conference, this battle has to go on. The great elder smiled. Hearing this, Jun Tian's face completely darkened. The surging aura of an 8th level sea of Soul Realm exploded. Jun Tian suddenly stood up. The terrifying aura that belonged to Spirit King Glorious Sun suppressed the entire place. Seeing this, the great elder's face changed greatly. He forced his chest out and said with a pale face, Sect Master Jun, this is the decision of the Elders Guild. This sentence was like a thunderbolt, bombarding Jun Tian's heart. Jun Tian's complexion also abruptly turned pale. Just as he was about to let Jun Aoyang step onto the stage, a chuckle entered his ears. No need to worry. Let me do it. Even if it's the 100th on the spirit leaderboard, I can let Jun Aoyang beat him down. Jun Tian was suddenly stunned. Then, he turned to look at a corner of the arena and suddenly widened his eyes. Tianyang. He could actually hide from so many people and transmit his voice to him. When he thought of how Tianyang had killed Elder Ku Shan, the Sky Demon Cult Elder, and countless Spirit Kings and Venerable Ironbone's deeds, Jun Tian's eyes immediately lit up. With his guidance, perhaps Jun Aoyang could really win. All right. Jun Tian suddenly roared and slammed his palm on the armrest of the chair. Then he waved his hand. Yang smashed that idiot with eyes on his head. Chapter 564. Yang Ergo. Hearing Jun Tian's boundless heroic cry, everyone was immediately stunned. What was going on with Jun Tian? He had a gloomy face before, but why was he so determined now? Could it be that he had some tricks up his sleeve that they hadn't discovered yet? Thinking of this, First Elder's eyes narrowed as he scanned Jun Aoyang from head to toe. However, Jun Aoyang's serious expression didn't seem to be fake. However, First Elder glanced at his son and sneered. How could a mere Jun Aoyang beat his eldest disciple and son? The gap between two realms wasn't something that could be bridged by any means. No matter how monstrous Jun Aoyang's martial talent was, it was still the same. Xingtian, go. You have to get first place. The First Elder sneered. Hearing this, Zhou Xingtian nodded and walked to the battle arena with Jun Aoyang. The spacious battle arena instantly became filled with killing intent. Young Master Jun, your martial talent is not bad. Unfortunately, you're still too young and too weak. Zhou Xingtian looked at Jun Aoyang and said arrogantly, It's better for me to be the leader of this year's martial arts competition. After all, a weakling like you can't convince the masses, right? Zhou Xingtian didn't show any mercy. Hearing this, Jun Ao Yang's face turned ugly as he snorted. We'll see who's strong and who's weak. If you want to use words to sway my mind now, it's impossible, Jun Ao Yang said. Hearing this, Zhou Xingtian's face turned slightly cold. Then he snorted, and his peak third sea of Soul Realm Zhen Yuan burst out. It seems like you're refusing a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. This is good too. I'll take care of you more quickly. Mid-grade Earth-class martial skill. Snake swallows the sun and moon. Zhou Xingtian's figure instantly disappeared. In the next moment, a huge python fist flew towards Jun Ao Yang. Jun Ao Yang's face changed. The Zhen Yuan in his body circulated rapidly. In the next moment, his figure flashed and dodged the fist. A dazzling flame appeared in his hand, and a long spear appeared. Oomph, you're not qualified to deal with me. Jun Aoyang coldly snorted as the true yuan in his body surged. A ball of flame appeared in his hand and quickly spread to the spear. The pitch-black annihilation flames looked extremely terrifying in the night sky. When Zhou Xingtian saw this, a greedy look flashed across his eyes. Only those of the Sun-Moon sect master's bloodline could possess the flame of annihilation. It was because of this annihilation flame that the faction leader was so powerful. Although the power that Jun Aoyang could unleash was less than 10,000th of its true power, it was still at the second level of the Battle Soul Realm. If he could get his hands on it, Zhou Xingtian would definitely be able to reach the top 100. The top 100 of the spirit ranking would dominate the entire eastern part of the central region and belong to the top geniuses of the central region. A weakling like you doesn't deserve a flame of this level. At that moment, Zhou Xingtian grinned hideously. His genuine core strength revolved, and a python shadow condensed in his hand. The power of his martial soul burst out instantly. High-grade Earth-tier martial spirit, heaven-devouring python. Zhou Xingtian roared. In the next moment, a strange black python that emitted a sinister aura appeared behind him. Black scales also appeared on Zhou Xingtian's body. His pupils turned into the emotionless vertical pupils of a snake. A strange and powerful devouring power appeared on his body. Oomph. You have a high-grade Earth-tier martial spirit, but don't tell me I don't. Jun Aoyang snorted coldly. Within his soul ocean, the power of his martial soul was also pulsing rapidly. In the next moment, a huge aura appeared on his body. High-grade Earth-tier martial spirit, Sun Wheel. A resplendent sun soared into the sky and lit up the entire night sky. Jun Aoyang's aura also began to rise steadily, almost reaching the second level of the Sea of Soul Realm. Sun Wheel Martial Spirit. It's almost half a great sun martial spirit. No wonder no one had any objections when you became the young master. But now, the position of leader is still mine. Zhou Xingtian roared. In the next moment, his figure suddenly disappeared. A devouring power was released, and a punch was thrown out. High-grade Earth-tier martial skill, Sky-devouring Snake Fist. High-grade Earth-tier martial skill, Sun Will Star Brilliance. Both sides roared at the same time. True Yuan exploded, and endless light was released. In the next moment, a spear and a fist fiercely collided. Boom! An extremely terrifying explosion erupted, causing the surrounding space to tremble slightly. The annihilation flame, together with the Sun Wheel martial spirit, exploded with a powerful spear. However, Zhou Xingtian was after all an expert who was ranked around 300 on the spirit ranking. The muscles all over his body exploded. In the next moment, the sky-devouring python's shadow merged into his body. Break for me! Zhou Xingtian roared. In the next moment, surging true yuan burst out, along with the strange devouring power of the sky-devouring python. It crazily devoured Jun Aoyang's annihilation flame. Seeing this, Jun Aoyang's face changed greatly. His Sun Wheel martial spirit and annihilation flame were not inferior to Zhou Xingtian's in terms of rank. However, the difference in true essence cultivation between them was simply too great. A gap of 2 whole stages was enough to make all the geniuses despair. After all, this was the level of the spiritual sea realm. The difference of 2 stages was comparable to the difference of 3 stages in the Tao Fire realm. It was even the difference between the clear Qi realm and the peak of the origin transformation realm. With such a huge gap, even if Jun Aoyang used all his methods, he would not be able to make up for it. Could it be that I have to give up the position of leader, just like that? Seeing that his attack was being crushed bit by bit, Jun Aoyang's eyes flashed with despair. His grandfather, the Sun Moon sect's old ancestor, did not have long to live. Moreover, his injuries had relapsed. If not for that, why would this group of elders dare to attack? However, the situation was already set in stone. All he could do was fight. But now, even a fight could not be salvaged. Ha ha! Jun Aoyang, just wait for your death. Zhou Xingtian laughed loudly. In the spectator stands, great elder Zhou Shandao's face was filled with relief as he clenched his old fists. As long as this punch was successful, there was hope for him to become the sect leader from the great elder position. As for Jun Tian, his face was ugly as he looked anxiously at Tianyang. At this moment, Tianyang chuckled. A young voice suddenly sounded in Jun Aoyang's mind. Beep, your cheat has come online. Please check. Tianyang smiled as his soul power covered the entire arena. All the flaws and weaknesses were within Tianyang's grasp. Tianyang, Jun Aoyang was stunned. At this moment, Tianyang's face suddenly became serious. Don't worry about that. Push your true yuan to the limit and take out your fire dance of the mysterious sky. Aim it at this retard's face and shoot. Tianyang shouted. Although Jun Aoyang did not understand, he instinctively did as he was told. The true yuan in his body crazily condensed. Huh, you still want to resist? It's useless. Seeing this, Zhou Xingtian laughed loudly. His sky-devouring python martial soul exploded to the limit as his body approached Jun Aoyang by an inch. At this moment, Zhou Xingtian had also let down his guard. The moment Zhou Xingtian let down his guard, Tianyang's pupils contracted as he roared, Go! Fire dance of mysterious sky. Jun Aoyang roared as the spear in his hand, that had been charging for a long time, pierced through the void and shot out. The space exploded, and the sky-devouring python fist shattered. Even the great elder and Jun Tian did not have the time to react. This spear had already pierced through Zhou Xingtian's weakness when he let down his guard. It directly pierced through Zhou Xingtian's forehead. His soul shattered. Chapter 565. In a short moment, Zhou Xingtian was dead. All of this happened too quickly. It was so quick that even Jun Tian and First Elder, who were paying attention to the battle situation at all times, didn't manage to react in time. Especially the head elder, whose face was completely frozen on the spot. What was going on? With just a blink of an eye, his son was dead. What's going on? The head elder abruptly stood up and roared. His 7th level C of Soul Realm Jin Yuan was released, pressing down on Jun Aoyang. Little bastard, how dare you kill my son? The head elder roared, and in the next moment, his figure flashed and rushed towards Jun Aoyang. Seeing this, Jun Tian did not care what had just happened. With a cold snort, the aura of the 8th level C of Soul Realm Glorious Sun Spirit King was released instantly. The first elder's figure suddenly stopped. In the next moment, Jun Tian's figure flashed and appeared in front of Jun Aoyang. Looking at the first elder who was about to kill Jun Aoyang, a murderous intent flashed in his eyes. In the next moment, Jun Tian directly kicked over. Pung! The head elder's figure was kicked away like a cannonball, flying at a speed faster than when he came. After all, he was only at the 7th level of C of Soul Realm. Jun Tian, on the other hand, was a famous 8th level C of Soul Realm expert, Glorious Sun Spirit King, whose name shook the eastern part of Central Region. It was clear who was stronger and who was weaker. In the battle arena, life and death are up to fate. You, Zhou Shandao, directly attack my son. Are you not putting me, the sect leader, in your eyes? Jun Tian said coldly. He was also surprised and doubtful in his heart. With his eyesight, he could naturally see that the amazing spear attack that Jun Aoyang used at the end was not something that Jun Aoyang could use by himself. Not to mention other things, it was impossible for Jun Aoyang to store up power to the millisecond level. Not to mention, it was extremely accurate to find Zhou Xingtian's flaw and kill him in one move. Then, the only person who could help Jun Aoyang to this step was Tianyang. This kid, he's really good at hiding. Jun Tian took a deep look at Tianyang, his heart filled with shock. Although he didn't know the commanding process of the celestial body, his judgment wasn't far from the truth. Previously, when Jun Aoyang was being suppressed, Tianyang was definitely not the one who commanded him. After all, if Tianyang was the one who commanded, Jun Aoyang would not have lost so badly, and he would not have been able to perform such a stunning final shot. Now that they were on guard, the effect naturally wouldn't be as great. But the spear at the end was definitely Heavenly Sun's doing. However, Tianyang was now standing outside the arena and watching this scene with a smile, as if it had nothing to do with him. Cough, cough. At this moment, the first elder flew back in a sorry state. He kept coughing out blood and looked weak. Jun Tian did not hold back at all in the previous kick. He had poured all the power of Spirit King Glorious Sun into the kick. The first elder's strength was not as strong as Jun Tian, and he was caught off guard. Although the kick was not enough to kill the first elder, it was enough to severely injure him. Who asked the first elder to say that Jun Aoyang was a bastard? That was the same as scolding Jun Tian and the Sun Moon Sect's elder. Sect leader, look at the good son you have raised. At this moment, the first elder suddenly raised his head and glared at Jun Tian. You should know that Zhou Xingtian is the pillar of our Sun Moon sect. What happened in the end? It was just a martial arts competition, and your son killed Zhou Xingtian directly, without the slightest bit of camaraderie. How can such a cold-blooded monster be the leader? The first elder roared angrily. Hearing this, Jun Tian's face turned cold. This first elder was really shrewd. His son was dead, but he could still endure the pain and come up with a set of reasons to suppress him, trying to gain the upper hand in terms of morality. Unfortunately, do you think I'm blind? Or do you think all the other elders are blind? Who was the first to kill? Don't you have any idea in your heart? Jun Tian sneered. Do you want me to show you the recording? Don't think you can just casually take out a hat and put on my son's head. Do you really think I'm an idiot? Hearing this, the first elder's face turned green and white. He turned around and glanced at the other elders, only to see a peak 6th level C of Soul Realm Elder shaking his head at him. The current situation was clearly Jun Tian holding the upper hand. Not to mention that he was fine. Even if it was impossible for him to suppress Jun Tian now. Now that Zhou Xingtian was dead and his soul shattered, it was impossible to save him. It was better to hurry back and discuss this. Oomph. You won this time, but it's a small world. The first elder snorted coldly, then led the group of elders and flew toward a certain place. As for Jun Tian, he sneered again and again. Have a safe journey. I won't send you off. Until these people all disappeared from sight, Jun Tian's taut face also immediately relaxed. He arrived in front of Tianyang in a single step and suddenly patted Tianyang's shoulder with his broad hand. He laughed loudly and said, "Little Tianyang, you're really something. You actually allowed Yang to kill that Zhou Xingtian guy. I thought the strongest would be defeating him. I didn't expect you to give me such a big surprise." Jun Tian laughed loudly. Hearing this, Tianyang grimaced in pain from the pat and said unhappily, "I feel like you're mocking me." Hearing this, Jun Tian laughed loudly again, not taking it to heart. As for Jun Aoyang, he walked up with a face full of gratitude. "Thank you, brother Tianyang, for your help. Otherwise, I'd be a corpse now." Jun Aoyang's gratitude was sincere. After all, everyone could see how dangerous the situation was. If not for Tianyang's command, it was unknown whether Jun Aoyang would still exist in this world. However, although we've eliminated the unstable Zhou Xingtian, that guy Zhou Shandao still hasn't given up. Jun Tian frowned and said. Hearing this, Jun Aoyang's face was also full of worry. The current Sun Moon sect was almost split into two factions. One was the faction of the sect master, led by Jun Tian. The other was the First Elder's faction, which was trying to usurp the throne. As long as the First Elder was still alive, no matter how many people died, it would be of no use. At this moment, Tianyang suddenly spoke. I also want to ask what's going on. I was mocked as soon as I arrived, and I just killed a few idiots who were looking for trouble, and now I'm here to help you kill another idiot. Is the Jun family so weak in the Sun Moon sect? Tianyang said. Hearing this, Jun Aoyang and Jun Tian's faces revealed a trace of bitterness. Then, they began to explain. The reason was very simple. It was because the Sun Moon sect's Grand Elder's condition was deteriorating day by day that the sect master's faction's power had weakened. That was why some of the monsters had come out. Hearing this, Tianyang also fell into deep thought. Now, there were two ways to solve this problem. The first was to kill the First Elder. However, this could easily cause the entire Sun Moon sect to fall apart. The second way was even more hopeless, but Tianyang's eyes flashed slightly. He raised his head and laughed softly. As long as your Grand Elder is cured, all this mess will be over, right? Hearing this, Jun Tian was stunned. Then, he nodded and revealed a trace of disbelief. Could it be? Tianyang's next sentence confirmed his guess. Bring me to see. Chapter 566. Who knows? I might be able to cure him. Tianyang chuckled. Jun Tian and Jun Aoyang were stunned when they heard that. Tianyang couldn't be talking nonsense because he had a fever, could he? You're strong in battle, but you can't be good at curing illnesses, right? If that's the case, what's the point of the others? Tianyang, my father's injuries are acting up. He's not suffering from any disease or poison. Normal treatment won't work. Jun Tian thought that Tianyang was going to use some special true essence to treat him, so he reminded him. The old man's injuries were acting up, and his body was very weak. He could not withstand any stimulation of true essence. Jun Tian was afraid that Tianyang would not understand, and the old man's injuries would worsen. If that happened, it would be even more difficult to take down the First Elder's faction. It's just a serious injury acting up, not a disease or poison. Tianyang was stunned when he heard that. Then he clapped his hands. Isn't that even better? Come, let me take a look. I can only treat the illness after I see it. Jun Tian. Did this kid not understand what I said? However, for the sake of Tianyang's face, Jun Tian had no choice but to nod and agree to Tianyang's request. However, he was still worried and instructed, don't move. Tianyang naturally nodded in agreement. He was there to treat and save people, not to kill. Moreover, that was an old man, not a beautiful woman. Why would he move around? Tianyang was able to remain calm when it came to Jiangnan's reign. Then, under Jun Tian and Jun Aoyang's questioning gazes, Tianyang calmly followed Jun Tian to a small valley behind the Sun Moon Peak, the main peak of the Sun Moon sect. The spirit chi of heaven and earth here was denser than the main peak. However, the area was too small, so it was turned into the sect leader's residence. The Sun Moon sect's patriarch was currently living in the sect leader's residence. Of course, it was more appropriate to say that he was lying down. Jun Aoyang, what's going on with your patriarch? Tianyang asked casually as they walked. Hearing this, Jun Aoyang sighed. What else could it be? In order to establish the foundation of the Sun Moon sect, grandfather had fought countless battles and left behind many internal injuries. When I was still in the Great Void Secret Realm, it was still fine. However, as I grew older, my grandfather finally could not suppress it anymore. Countless hidden injuries erupted, and he was seriously injured and on the verge of death. Jun Aoyang sighed as tears welled up in his eyes. If no one could cure the Sun Moon sect's old ancestor, then the Sun Moon sect's old ancestor would definitely die. As his grandson, Jun Aoyang was naturally incomparably sad. However, Tianyang raised his eyebrows slightly when he heard this. His internal injuries flared up, causing him to be seriously injured and on the verge of death. This was a little different from when he was seriously injured before. However, if he wanted to treat it, there's not much difference. As the supreme alchemist of his generation, Tianyong only needed to slightly modify it in his mind, and it would be a perfect treatment plan. The location of the sect leader's residence was no secret in the Sun Moon sect. However, the method to enter was a secret among secrets. Even though he was the sect leader, Jun Tian still brought Tianyong and walked for a full 10 minutes. They went around a few rounds before they entered. This is a maze array. It is used to prevent enemies from sneaking in and attacking. Now, it is used to guard against our own people. After entering the sect leader's residence, Jun Tian laughed self-mockingly. If father knew, he would probably die of anger. Hearing this, Tianyong was speechless. In the world of martial arts, people were sinister. Usurping the throne was a common occurrence in the history of the Sky Continent. Tianyong had seen even crueler things than this. All right, here it is, Jun Tian said. Jun Tiandao said. Hearing this, Tianyong nodded slightly and walked in. Jun Tian and Jun Ao Yang also walked in. Again, at that moment, a weak voice came from inside, followed by a series of violent coughs. The expressions of Tianyong and the other three changed slightly. They hurriedly walked in and saw an extremely old man lying on the bed, and in front of his chest there was a pool of black blood. What? Seeing this, Jun Tian's eyes widened and he ran to the old man's side with an anxious expression. Father, how are you? I'm fine. The old man had a natural expression. It's just a bit of a flare-up. In my life, I've killed countless spirit kings. Even those half a step into the heavenly ascension stage have died in my hands. Those fellows who should have lived for thousands of years were dragged into the netherworld by me in advance. I'm still alive now. I really profited. The old man laughed heroically. Hearing this, Tianyong's heart trembled slightly. This kind of heroic spirit was something that ordinary people definitely did not have. It could be seen that this old man with one foot in the grave was definitely a hero of his generation many years ago. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to establish the Sun Moon sect and continue to this day. Father, what are you thinking? You can't possibly die. Hearing this, Jun Tian became even more anxious. To a strong person, death was not scary. The scariest thing was to have the will to die. If the will to die was born, even a deity would not be able to save him. It doesn't matter. I've lived for so long and killed so many. I've learned cough cough. The old man waved his hand. Just as he finished speaking, he suddenly coughed twice and spat out 2 mouthfuls of blood. In the next moment, the old man's coughing became even more intense. Cough cough, cough cough, cough cough. Mouthfuls of black blood were spat out from the old man's mouth. The old man's complexion also rapidly weakened. Seeing this, Jun Tian's expression changed greatly. As for Tianyong, his pupils contracted. Get out of my way. Tianyong roared angrily and forcefully pushed Jun Tian away. Placing his fingers on the old man's wrist, he released his soul force. The old man was still wondering when this brat appeared. However, when he vaguely sensed Tianyong's terrifying soul force, the old man's eyes instantly widened. He revealed a look of intense fear. However, Tianyong did not care so much. He gathered all his attention and carefully sensed the old man's condition. The more he sensed, the more serious it became. Young friend Tianyong, Jun Tian was just about to rage. However, when he saw Tianyong's extremely serious expression, he instantly guessed something. How? Immediately gathered the medicinal herbs for me. Tianyong spoke, his expression unprecedentedly serious. Starlight leaf, life-giving fruit, mysterious underworld liquid, stone life flower. Tianyong quickly recited the medicinal herbs one by one. Jun Aoyang also memorized them all in his heart. As for Jun Tian, he looked at Tianyong with a puzzled expression. This is, your old ancestor is about to die. Tianyong opened his mouth. Hearing this, Jun Tian's expression changed greatly. However, if you refine the pill, then there's still a chance. Tianyong spoke again. Hearing this, Jun Aoyang suddenly stood up and rushed out of the door. Damn! Seeing Jun Aoyang leave quickly, Jun Tian forcefully stopped his body and asked, "What pill?" Chapter 567. Grade 5 Elixir, Spirit Life, Elixir. Tianyang said solemnly. Jun Tian's pupils constricted. Is it the elixir that can bring the dead back to life? It's not that exaggerated, but it's not a problem to save someone who's still breathing. Tianyang waved his hand and looked at the Sun-Moon Sect's old ancestor seriously. Old man, don't think about dying now. There are many people in the Sun-Moon Sect who want you dead, Tianyang said. Jun Tian panicked. The Sun-Moon Sect's old ancestor was already in such a state. And you're still talking about this? However, it wasn't good to interrupt him. Jun Tian looked at Tianyang unhappily. The Sun-Moon Sect's old ancestor was stunned. What's the situation? The Sun-Moon Sect's old ancestor said. Tianyang, on the other hand, began to elaborate in detail. From time to time, Jun Tian would supplement the story without adding any details. After all, the truth was so infuriating. Bastards! What kind of people are they? After hearing the whole story, the Sun-Moon Sect's old ancestor sat up in anger and roared, "A bunch of sons of cheese." It was a mistake to let them in. It was no wonder that the Sun-Moon Sect's old ancestor was so angry. After all, some of the elders who wanted to usurp the throne came in with Jun Tian, and most of them were promoted by the Sun-Moon Sect's old ancestor himself. For example, the current Great Elder, Zhou Shandao. Zhou Shandao and the Sun-Moon Sect's old ancestor were brothers and had a good relationship. In the end, when the Sun-Moon Sect's old ancestor was about to die, he jumped out and wanted to take over the Sun-Moon Sect. What kind of ingrates had he raised? Cough, cough. Cough, cough. The Sun-Moon Sect's old ancestor coughed out a few more drops of blood. However, he no longer had the will to die. At this moment, Tianyang said slowly, "So, if you die, this bunch of ingrates will be proud. The lightest consequence is that the Sun-Moon Sect will be split into two. The Sun-Moon Sect will be greatly damaged, and once the martial arts conference begins, it will be reduced to a second-rate force. Most importantly, the Sun-Moon Sect is under the control of the Grand Elder. You've worked so hard to build your empire, yet you're giving it all to someone else." Tianyang said. Hearing that, the Sun-Moon Sect's old ancestor was even more enraged. He almost lost control of the true Yuan in his body and exploded. Then, the Sun-Moon Sect's Grandmaster forced himself to calm down and looked at Tianyang bitterly. "Little brother, can you really help me recover?" He was the clearest about his own injuries. The old ancestor of the Sun-Moon Sect had fought countless battles for many years. The hidden injuries that he had suffered were enough to kill him a few hundred times over. Now that it had erupted, the Sun-Moon Sect's old ancestor was seriously injured and on the verge of death. If not for the fact that he was at the peak of the half-step heavenly completion stage, he would have died long ago. However, he was not far from death. Now that Tianyang said that he could revive him, the Sun-Moon Sect's Grand Elder's first reaction was to be filled with hope. His second reaction was to think that it was impossible. "If I can't save you, then no one in the entire Sky Continent can save you," Tianyang said indifferently. Hearing that, the Sun-Moon Sect's old ancestor and Jun Tian's hearts trembled. Wasn't Tianyang saying that his alchemy skills could crush the entire Heaven Continent? Even Jun Tian, who trusted Tianyang a lot, began to feel nervous. If Tianyang could say that he could refine the Spirit Life pill, then he could too. The key was whether he could refine it or not. In the entire continent, there were less than 5 people who could refine the Spirit Life pill. Those who could refine it were even fewer, and they were all at the peak of Heaven Continent. Tianyang was only at the peak of the half-step sea of Soul Realm. How could he refine the Spirit Life pill? "I'm here." Just as Jun Tian was feeling suspicious, Jun Aoyang's hurried voice could be heard. In the next moment, Jun Aoyang ran over with a brand new spatial bag in his hand. "These are the medicinal ingredients you wanted. I only managed to find 2 sets before the Great Elder and the others found out. I don't know if it's enough." Jun Aoyang gasped for breath. Hearing that, Tianyang took the spatial bag. After checking it, he nodded. "It's enough. Moreover, The age and quality are perfect. If nothing goes wrong, 2 sets of medicinal ingredients can refine 2 spirit life pills. At that time, your old ancestor will recover to his peak state, Tianyang said confidently. Hearing that, Jun Aoyang nodded. Then Jun Tian let Jun Aoyang bring Tianyang outside. Tianyang, my friend, you can refine the pills here. The spiritual qi here is abundant. It's the most suitable place, Jun Tian said. Tianyang nodded. Although it wasn't a quiet room, the spiritual qi here was abundant. There wasn't much of a difference whether it was a quiet room or not. Then, in Tianyang's body, the divine, desolate, heavenly spirit art circulated rapidly. The heavenly annihilation flames burned fiercely. In front of him, it condensed into a huge flaming cauldron. Seeing that, Jun Tian and Jun Aoyang were even more surprised. Transforming the flames into a cauldron. Tianyang's move is something that even those Spirit King level 5th grade alchemists can't do, Jun Tian said in shock. Hearing that, Jun Aoyang nodded as if he understood. At this moment, Tianyang's expression froze slightly. It was as if his entire person had changed. An aura that he had never had before appeared on Tianyang's body. A concentrated aura slowly spread out from Tianyang's body. Seeing that, Ling Yuhan, who had been silent at the side, was stunned. At this moment, Tianyang moved. The heavenly annihilation flames rose under the flaming cauldron. There was no need to heat the cauldron. The flaming cauldron was adjusted to the most suitable temperature. In the next moment, Tianyang threw the first medicinal ingredient into the cauldron. The black and gold flames rose and instantly melted the medicinal ingredient into the purest medicinal essence. Tianyang's fingers moved and the impurities were directly thrown out. Following that, his right hand was like moving clouds and flowing water as he threw in another medicinal ingredient. In a short few seconds, another medicinal ingredient melted. Following that, another medicinal ingredient was thrown in. There were dozens of medicinal ingredients used to refine the Spirit Birth pill. The initial extraction was simple. However, towards the end, the extraction of the medicinal ingredients would become incomparably difficult. However, it was not difficult for Tianyang. The 10th, a cold light flashed in Tianyang's eyes. The 10th medicinal ingredient, heavenly water ginseng, was thrown into the flaming cauldron by Tianyang. Jun Tian's eyes suddenly focused. This heavenly water ginseng is extremely difficult to refine. Moreover, its nature is extremely violent. If the refinement is not successful, there will be the risk of the cauldron exploding. I don't know if Tianyang will be able to pass this test. At this moment, the heavenly water ginseng was already enveloped by the heavenly annihilation flames and began to struggle rapidly. Boom, 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 boom. The heavenly water ginseng kept attacking the flaming cauldron, causing the cauldron to fluctuate. Seeing this, Jun Tian's expression changed. The cauldron is going to explode. At this moment, Tianyang chuckled. 9 black and gold fire dragons rushed into the sky. A mere medicinal ingredient wants to escape from my grasp. 9 dragons cycle technique refine, Tianyang roared. In the next moment, the 9 black and gold fire dragons began to circle rapidly. The 9 black and gold fire dragons circled and danced as if a real fire dragon had been born. Seeing this, Jun Tian's eyes widened to the extreme as he looked at this scene in disbelief. This is... Jun Tian was shocked. However, Jun Aoyang had helped him shout out in advance. Chapter 568. The Tianji Sword Emperor. In the current Heavens continent, these 4 words were like a deity that people worshipped. After all, the Tianji Sword Emperor was not only the strongest person in the continent 10,000 years ago, but he was also the strongest alchemist in the continent 10,000 years ago. Therefore, anything related to the Tianji Sword Emperor was highly valued and even shocked by. However, because the Tianji Sword Emperor had died during the Great Civilization Annihilation, he did not leave behind any legacy. Therefore, the Tianji Sword Emperor from 10,000 years ago had only left behind a few words in the records. However, Jun Aoyang looked at the 9 black dragons in disbelief. There was no way they were mistaken. This was the signature technique of the heavenly pole sword emperor, the great emperor of his generation who dominated the martial path and alchemy 10,000 years ago. How could this be? Didn't they say that the Tianji sword emperor did not leave behind any legacy? Jun Aoyang whispered in disbelief. Hearing this, Jun Tian, who was also in a state of shock, seemed to have thought of something. Not necessarily, although the great civilization annihilation was powerful and could kill the Tianji sword emperor instantly. Before that, the Tianji sword emperor was still alive and well. There's no such thing as a dying person being able to leave behind a legacy. Young Tianyang swordsmanship is so powerful, his knowledge is so vast, and he even obtained the legacy of the Taishu emperor. However, he was only born in a small star swordplay sect. Now that his alchemy cultivation has been exposed, perhaps young Tianyang has obtained the legacy left behind by the Tianji sword emperor when he was alive. Jun Tian said. Hearing this, Jun Aoyang nodded, his heart filled with shock. It was one thing to obtain the legacy of the Taishu emperor, but in the Taishu secret realm, his strength was indeed not as good as Tianyang's. However, he had not expected that apart from strength, Tianyang's providence would be so strong as well. The Tianji sword emperor, from 10,000 years ago until now, who knew how many people had chased after his legacy. Even if there was no information, countless people would spend their entire lives searching for it. Unexpectedly, Tianyang had obtained the legacy of the Tianji sword emperor. What a great opportunity! Jun Aoyang muttered to himself. Jun Aoyang mumbled to himself. His heart was filled with envy, but he wasn't jealous. After all, other than the inheritance, Tianyang's martial arts talent was also ridiculously strong. In less than a year's time, he had reached the half-step sea of Soul Realm and could break through to the sea of Soul Realm at any time. Even Jun Aoyang, the strongest genius of the Sun Moon sect, had to admit that he was inferior to this speed. However, if Tianyang heard their voice transmissions, he probably wouldn't know whether to laugh or cry. What the hell was going on? He was his own successor? In his previous life, he really didn't leave behind any inheritance. However, Tianyang did not hear them. At this moment, he was completely focused on the cauldron in front of him. Fine beads of sweat appeared on his forehead. Tianyang had never been this focused before. His soul power was released, and not a single change in the cauldron could escape from his palm. A 5th grade pill corresponds to a 5th grade alchemist at the Sea of Soul Realm. Damn it, I haven't reached the Sea of Soul Realm yet. No wonder it's so difficult to refine. Tianyang's divine desolate sky spirit art circulated rapidly. Surging true yuan gushed out and poured into the 9 black gold fire dragons. If not for the fact that he cultivated the divine desolate sky spirit art and condensed 108 drops of extremely dense sky origin Jin Yuan, if it were any other half-step sea of Soul Realm expert, their Jin Yuan would have long been exhausted, and they would have failed. 58th herb, daylily flame grass. Tianyang's soul power grabbed a fiery red spirit grass and threw it into the cauldron. The 9 black gold fire dragons opened their mouths again and swallowed it. The 9 dragons circled above the cauldron as if they were real dragons. This scene was like an ink painting. It made Jun Aoyang and Jun Tian stare at it. They were completely immersed in the process. It was as if Heavenly Sun wasn't refining pills in a dull and boring manner, but was drawing a beautiful painting with a brush. 72nd, last herb. Tianyang's face paled slightly. Spirit Life Pill was not a low-grade pill among 5th-grade pills. Although he had the alchemy cultivation of a 6th-grade alchemist, his true yuan was only at the 4th grade. Refining such a high-grade pill would naturally consume a lot of true yuan. However, the effect was also gratifying. Under the powerful might of the heavenly flame of annihilation, the last stalk of medicinal herb that was like a boulder was also purified of all impurities, turning into a pure medicinal liquid. In an instant, the 72 herbs in the cauldron shone brightly. Before they merged, an aura full of vitality was released and spread throughout the entire sect leader's mansion. How fragrant! Zhu Naoyang opened his eyes wide and shot out a ball of light. Under this pill fragrance, he could even feel that the place that was injured by Zhou Xingtian was slowly healing. One had to know that this was an injury caused by the top 300 on the spirit roll. Unless one went into seclusion to recuperate or consumed a 4th-grade pill, it would be extremely difficult to heal. In the end, under this pill fragrance, it actually started to heal automatically. As expected of the strongest healing pill among the 5th-grade pills, the Spirit Life pill, this medicinal effect is indeed powerful. If the Patriarch consumed it, he would definitely be able to recover to his peak condition. As for Jun Tian, he could see the knack of it. His eyes lit up, and he was very excited. To the Sun Moon sect, the Sun Moon sect's Patriarch was like a jade pillar that could hold up the sky. As long as the Sun Moon sect's Patriarch was alive, the Sun Moon sect would not fall. Recently, the Sun Moon sect's Patriarch's condition had made countless people in the Sun Moon sect anxious. In an instant, the entire Sun Moon sect's hearts were shaken, which gave the Great Elder the chance to rebel. However, if the Sun Moon sect's Patriarch was revived, then the so-called Great Elder and the others would collapse on their own. Next is to condense the pills. Tianyang rested for a few seconds and adjusted the true yuan in his body. Then, a ball of annihilation heavenly flame spewed out again. However, before Tianyang's annihilation heavenly flame could touch the 72 herbs, an unforeseen event occurred outside the sect leader's mansion. Boom, 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 boom. At this moment, a terrifying explosion suddenly came from afar. Hearing this, Jun Tian's expression changed abruptly. Damn it, it's Zhou Shandao and the others. As expected, they're afraid of losing their power, so they jumped out to court death. Jun Tian's expression was extremely gloomy. Hearing this, Tianyang and Jun Aoyang frowned, especially Jun Aoyang. He was so angry that he gritted his teeth. This group of people will really die a horrible death. Although this kind of commotion can affect me, if they break through the formation and rush in, then it'll be bad. Tianyang frowned. Hearing this, Jun Tian nodded. I'll be there immediately. Master Tianyang, don't worry and refine the pills. Unknowingly, Jun Tian's address of Tianyang had changed from little friend to master. After all, to see of soul realm experts, even if they were spirit kings, a 5th-grade alchemist was an extremely high existence. If they offended him, they might not be able to live in peace for the rest of their lives. Moreover, a 5th-grade alchemist's miraculous alchemy skills were also something that countless sea of soul realm experts dreamed of. In go. Tianyang nodded. Then, he controlled the annihilation heavenly flame and began to condense the pills. On the other hand, Jun Tian nodded and soared into the sky. His face that was full of smiles was instantly covered by dark clouds. Surging killing intent was released from Jun Tian's body.